Hi, I'm Michael Young. I'm the director of the Entertainment Arts and Engineering program at the University of Utah. Welcome to EAE Play. EAE Play is our middle of the school year showcase event featuring the amazing work that our students, faculty, and staff do around games. EAE is the U's nationally recognized games program, a world leader in games education and research. This is our 14th year here at the U, and this year we're running all of EAE Play online, opening up the presentations worldwide here on Twitch. For this year's play, we're going to have live streamed presentations from now until about 7:30 tonight, showing 13 student-made games. The first set of games you'll see next are being made in our undergraduate capstone course, where seniors in the BS in Games degree and the Games emphasis in the BS in Computer Science work in teams across 2 semesters to make and publish games. The second set of games, which starts tonight around 6:10, are being developed by our second-year master's students who are also working in a 2-semester projects class. Both these classes started their work in August and will finish their games in April. What you'll see today are games that are halfway through their development process. They're unpolished, but feature complete. For all these games, today is meant as a chance for the dev teams to get feedback. Each of the teams today will showcase their game and be joined live by a games industry veteran who'll be offering feedback and helping to point the way for the final months of dev work. You'll get to see the games in action, and you can download many of them yourself and send in feedback to the students at EAE who are building them. During the stream, you'll see links to our website where you can download the games, directions on how to give input that can help improve the games over the coming semester. The finished products will be highlighted in our end of year open house called EAE Launch, which will be held in late April in 2023. You can get all the details about today's games on the EAE's website, which is also where you can learn more about our undergraduate and graduate programs in game development. If you've got any questions about our program, please feel free to email me or any of the faculty or staff you see here today. Our contact information is also on our website, games.utah.edu. Now, I'm going to stop talking and let the students show their creativity, their passion, and the skills they use to build their games. Thanks for joining us, and enjoy the work of our amazing students.
All right. Hey, how's it going, Roger?
Oh, it's so good to see you, Fernando. How are you doing today?
All good. How about you?
I'm great. It is unbelievable how good the games are that we're looking at today, and I'm excited to share the capstone games today. How about you?
Same. I am super excited. I think we have a very good batch of games this year. And like Michael was saying, it's just important to keep in mind this is halfway through their 1-year capstone project. So the games are not fully complete, but they do have all of the main features that you would need to even start playing. So, and I think they turned out great.
For context, the capstone class is 210 seniors who are all graduating this year who are working on a year-long game that they'll be publishing in the spring. So as Fernando said, right now it's a midway point. So you'll be getting a sneak peek at these games. We'll show them to you again in the spring, and you'll be able to download them on Steam or other platforms. And we're really proud of these students. They're all going to do amazing jobs today, and we couldn't be more excited.
Absolutely. Yeah. And keep an eye out for links to social media, links to downloading the games, playtesting, all that good stuff.
And remember, all of these students are graduating in May. So if you see one you like, they're always looking for jobs.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go ahead and do the first game.
Sure thing. So I think we're going to go and start with Rat Heist. And there should be a trailer playing. Yeah, there should be a trailer playing very soon.
Hello, everybody. My name is Riley Rude, and this is Daniel Chan. And with us today is Clark Stacy of Wideworks. Would you like to say anything, Clark?
Hi guys, hope you can hear me all right, but I'm really looking forward to checking out the game. I love the trailer already.
Clark, it's so good to have you with us today, buddy. Thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely. Thank you
It's
so
good
much.
to see you too.
So, Rat Heist is a stealth puzzle platformer in which you play as a witch's rat familiar, tasked to steal a book, which is the key to turning you back into a human. Which I believe we should be getting gameplay of shortly. And
Who is your intended audience with the game?
the intended audience is anyone that likes puzzle games, anyone that particularly enjoys platformers, as there's plenty of platforming in the game, as well as anyone who kind of likes the aesthetic. But it's for all ages. Ooh,
There we go.
Roger? What just happened?
Did we lose Roger?
I don't know.
He's okay. Well, all right. Well,
Here we
got
are
some
in the game.
Yeah. All right. Tell us what we're looking at.
So here we have our still unnamed rat, whose goal is to reach the top of this bookcase and retrieve the item at the top. So here, the rat can grab this potion of growth and bring them back over to those dead vines to heal them, to allow them to climb up.
All right.
To explain a little more about the story of the game, as I mentioned, you're a rat trying to turn back into a human. Formerly a witch, you were cursed by your rival into becoming a rat. The goal is to retrieve your rival's spell book, to use it to turn yourself back into a human, and to probably turn your rival into a rat herself. Of course, in this level, being a small vertical slice, our goal is instead to retrieve the golden carrot in the chest at the end. But the goal of the overall game will be to retrieve that book.
All right.
stealing it from
So
her.
I guess, yeah, the golden carrot is kind of an ingredient that you'll need for your spell, I assume?
For the spell or for a future puzzle, yes.
Excellent. Yeah, in that area that you were down there before, it looked like there were some, looked like candles that were
Yes,
shooting at
so
you.
those are our
Talk about those.
waxies. The waxies are one of several enemy types that we have or will have within the game. Waxies are stationary and will fireball projectiles at you when they detect you.
Awesome.
The
Yeah,
other
looks like
enemy
you did-
type, which we should see in a little while, are the fire spirits or fire sprites, who are they don't have projectile attacks, but instead do or will do a area of effect burst around them. So don't get too close, and don't try to get close. There will also
Gotcha.
be an owl, though he is not currently in this build, which will kind of stand overwatch fairly often. Some puzzles may be built around getting his attention to move elsewhere so that he does not see you.
Yeah, so while our
Gotcha.
player is traversing through the level right now, you'll notice the different assets in the game, and we wanted to really focus on the size of the rat and showing off the scale of the world that you're playing and see how tiny you actually are. And since this is only like halfway through the game, we want to really emphasize on feeling small, having like different objects potentially like crushing you later on, and creating that environment in the game for you to scurry and run around.
I'm wondering, Clark, do you have any initial thoughts as you look at this?
Yeah, a few. How are there any other ways we've seen the rat pick stuff up and jump and maybe manipulate some objects to get to different areas? Are there other ways that you envision this character interacting with the world?
Not directly. Everything would be an extension of what we currently have, though there is, as our player has shown a few times, currently the hat can grow, which can hide you from enemies. Though it's sort of, you can't really move in that state, so it's kind of an emergency prevention.
Okay.
Yes, that is our player, James. Trying to get on top of this moving book. There we are.
James, do the hat trick.
Yeah. There we go.
There we go.
Ah, very nice.
So as he continues up through these moving books, he'll have to, or will soon rather, encounter the fire spirit. Though we've taken a bit of a fall there, I'm afraid. So all the assets in the game were made by our team. Nothing was pre-made to any extent. All of it was made by us and our very talented artists.
Yeah. Do you maybe a couple of comments of things to work or focus on next? This kind of game is entirely dependent on the interaction of the character with the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I was going to focus on something for the next iteration of this and getting it to kind of a minimum lovable product, I think it would be animation of the main character. Right now, we're looking at a rat butt for a lot of the game, which is not a bad thing, but I would add some physics to the tail. I would add transitional animations to jumps. I would give the rat more of a feeling of weight when it lands on something. I think there's kind of a floaty feeling to the physics of objects and things now.
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to have just this character polished in a block world and have it be fun to climb things, to interact with things, because that's your core mechanic, right? I mean, that's the core of what you're building here. I think that the world looks magical. It makes me want to explore it. I think though that there's got to be more visual interest and engagement with this main character, since this is my main character. When I grab things like that, I think it's an opportunity, because the camera's locked so often behind the character. It's an opportunity to move the camera and actually see the rat grab something, right? It's an opportunity to see the rat from a different angle, to see the rat from the front, and maybe give it some more expression than we can get from just a butt and a tail.
Yeah. Absolutely. That will certainly be
I like that. So the idea is that when it picks something up, the camera swoops around, and I can sort of see that animation.
Yeah, particularly the first time you pick up a new object. You want to see the rat doing this. You want to see the rat struggling with it. It needs to be given a little more characterization. Otherwise, the rat here could be replaced with a praying mantis, and you wouldn't really matter.
Gotcha.
Because you want to see some personality, some characteristics in the rat. You want to hear it. It jumps off of something too high. You want to hear it say oof and limp for a little bit. I think a lot has to go into the animation of this character itself, transitional animations to make it feel alive. But the world itself, I think that it's got a great look, and it makes me want to explore it, and that's where you want to be at this stage.
Thank you. We saw there that James took a bit of a tumble and got sent back a ways. But there's certainly going to be a focus on our movement and how the rat will be animating. I believe you initially rigged and animated the rat, Daniel?
Yeah, so I thought that was very useful feedback for us to work on for next semester. We wanted to make sure that you could feel the movement, and obviously that's something that we do have to polish. We didn't want to finalize too many animations yet, because we wanted to make sure that when we do pick the version of the rat that we want to choose, then we could actually focus on polishing it up and do those different animations that you just mentioned and create more personality for the rat at that point.
Yeah.
So.
I believe that we are nearly out of time. So I guess any
Yeah,
final thoughts?
I think that's a good approach. I think if you focus your effort on just the experience of running and jumping and making the rat feel like a living character and one that has the same visual interest as the world, look for opportunities to show personality and characteristics in reaction animations, in frustration when they fall off of something, or a feeling of weight when they pick something up, then you're going to have something that is really just fun to play with in a block world.
Thank you.
Mark, if they had to choose between puzzles and animation, what do you think?
I would focus on the core mechanic, and the core mechanic is running around, jumping on stuff. Maybe it's picking up objects in the world, like you picked up a book to create a ramp to get up to something. I would focus on that core before, and really polish that up before building on that, because that's got to be solid first.
Okay, thank you. I believe next up we will be showing the trailer and the presentation for Natural Disaster. And thank you very much.
Thanks
Mark.
for showing this to me, guys.
Mark,
this is really great.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah, excited to see where it goes next.
Looking sharp there, aren't you?
Doing our best.
All right. How's it going?
It's going good. How's it going with you guys?
Awesome.
It's
All
good.
right.
Go ahead and introduce yourselves and our guest.
Right. My name's Easton Madsen, and this is Ryan Abney, and we're producers on the game Natural Disasters. We have a very special guest, John O'Neill, here, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm John O'Neill. I'm actually,
There we go. We got an introduction.
you did
Perfect.
a great job. Yeah.
We also
John
have.
O'Neill,
Sorry.
I'm from Unity Technologies. No problem.
Unity, fantastic. I'm Ryan, as Easton said, and we have James playing the game. To get started, Natural Disaster is a point-and-click inspired adventure game set in a ViewMaster, in which the player explores different scenes, inciting all kinds of disasters via the butterfly effect. And basically, for those who don't know, the butterfly effect is the concept that the flap of a butterfly's wings on one side of the planet creates a tornado on the other side of the planet. And I also said the game is set in a ViewMaster, and this is a ViewMaster. It's an old toy. Basically, you look through and swap through different scenes and pictures, and that's how you play our game. You play as a butterfly in a ViewMaster. So.
Yeah.
All right. We got some gameplay to show?
Yes,
Yes.
we do.
Excellent.
Yeah, so like I said, like Ryan mentioned, James is playing our game here. This is one of our first scenes. We have a museum, so we're gonna go through and introduce our scenes first. As we go through, we have a prison yard. I believe next is the graveyard. A wonderful little dock that has a restaurant named Chimmy's. Our wonderful carnival. Our train station. And our pinball arcade.
Yeah, and to kind of give context to the pinball arcade, and I guess all of it, the game actually takes place in the 1950s, kind of going back to the Viewmaster and when it was popular and things like that. So.
Yeah, and we want to show off some of our pathways to you, the little things you can do to incite major mayhem. What we're going to show off first is one of our characters named Lawrence, one of the prisoners here at our wonderfully designed jail. Through interaction with the objects here is how you sort of incite chaos. We're going to be using a few tricks to try and make sure that the items are obvious to players, such as messing with color and position.
And as you can see, the player just broke Lawrence out of prison, and now he's at the museum, so he's probably up to no good.
Yes. It also points out that all of our scenes are kind of interconnected with one another, causing mayhem in one will affect how the other ones go.
Yeah, on a Viewmaster there are 7 pictures in each one, and so like the slides on a Viewmaster, our levels are all one. They're all a part of the same slide. So one thing you do in another will affect the things that happen in another. So.
Yep. Now currently we have it set so that as you switch through some of these scenes, time passes on. So for the player to find new objects, sometimes they just have to keep moving scenes. So in this case, Lawrence, who is in prison for thievery, has stolen this wonderful artifact and knocked 2 innocent civilians out of the way.
Yeah.
You might have noticed in the corner the blue book icon. That's our sticker book or our scrapbook. In it is how players will track progress for the mayhem that they cause. So you'll notice that with this pathway, you got the fight that happened, collecting the keys, the robbery, but there are other pathways to explore. So a lot of exploration in this game. Of course, they aren't the only, big interactions aren't the only thing. We have a bunch of smaller interactions that the player can mess with to create little bits of a much smaller mayhem.
Yeah, you can see James landing on the bird's nest. And a bird comes to say hello.
Yes. We have some other things, such as this weight back here, which appears our person has disappeared.
Yeah, there's supposed to be a person there, and they're dying invisibly right there.
Yes,
so.
Exactly. They knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Ghost lifting.
Yeah, ghost lifting.
Awesome. So, John, do you have any feedback on what you've seen so far?
Yeah, it was interesting. So when I watched the trailer, I got really interested because it has a unique puzzle curiosity effect to it. I'm watching and go, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing yet, but I like the tone, I like the feeling, I love the viewfinder, and it's really interesting the way you're bringing together these interconnected puzzle systems. It's almost like, a choose your own adventure sandbox style with mayhem mixed in. And some of the things that, I think about in level design, how much, I should say, do you have to script versus leave experimental or physics driven? And the reason why I ask that is when I look at this as a player, I'm going to want to go around and start interacting with everything. And certain things I think you want to let happen, and others you may want to control, where you have your sequential events, you have to go between scenes, unlock A to get to B. you don't want to completely ruin it for the player, but you want to let them kind of experiment through some loss, through curiosity, not over penalizing, but not frustrating either. Have you thought about that? Like, where do you balance those different layers?
So currently, you'll notice that our wonderful player James has killed off one of our wonderful NPCs. But when it comes to the sequential versus sort of physics space, I know that we have been talking with the designers and have talked with playtesters about how sort of we want more the player to have control over things to at least make it more player driven, that they aren't being punished for missing something and that they have those options. Now, of course, mixed in with these small tiny bits of mayhem, the butterfly itself isn't exempt from causing chaos to itself. So if we were to go, say, to Chimney's Path, you might notice that there's an open fridge here. Even certain small interactions will cause the death of the butterfly. And one of the ways the way we sort of do our, like when you complete a path, is the world resets, and that allows you the opportunity to explore those pathways again.
Yeah, and after a world reset, the scrapbook progress will be saved to allow the player to keep track of their own progress and the things that they've already done. So
that's good. That encourages, you're not going to feel you've lost progress, and you may want to go back and just try something else goofy. You've got some great humor, and the characters, the interactions, the sound, those are all important, to give kind of that payoff moment. You've got shadows. Now, it's interesting. One of the challenges I think you'll have is you're controlling from one fixed camera location. And that's intentional, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah. And,
Okay.
just out of, interest, we find right now that the game is a lot easier to play on a controller. And I think that's part of that fixed camera angle. We're still kind of figuring out what might work best for mouse and keyboard.
Yeah, and not every interaction sort of has an animation or sound with it yet. However, we have, say, here, the butterfly's just tied Lawrence's shoes together, which gives it a sound. But we're working on with the controls and with making sure that people understand they've done something, to have good sound cues and some visual cues that go along with it.
Yeah.
Very important, and also giving feedback when someone wants to interact with something without giving it away, but you need to provide some guidance to what they can touch to have a reaction and what's just ambient. Okay, you hit a flower. That's not really anything that's going to do something for a level unlock, but maybe it'll flutter, or maybe a bee will buzz out of it. Some idle interesting where the player gets a payback because they know they clicked it, or they've moved with the controller, and they're not getting frustrated because nothing's happening. One thing that you may want to look at, it's interesting, one fixed perspective with a lot of interactivity. There were a tremendous number of hidden object style games, casual games that were released years ago. Big Fish is a company, a studio that did some very successful titles. I would look at that for research and see how they used fixed locations to control interactivity, but still provide that feedback to the player of, hey, look over here, there's something you want to do, without giving it all away. And there were tons of other hidden object games that followed that successful genre, but Big Fish had an enormous production value that put in to some of their main titles.
Yes, I believe I've played a few of them. So definitely something we should look into. So
Cool. And I like the fact you're working in 3D, though. You can do so much more. That's one of the differences from the old hidden object. They were all 2D, painterly style, and so you've got a lot more depth. And maybe take advantage of that depth. The art style, I think, is coming together nicely. Throw some ambient occlusion. Even depth of field if you want to mess around with that butterfly as it moves in and out. That can be kind of fun.
I'm sure the designers appreciate the feedback. I wouldn't have done it myself, so I definitely agree that messing around with it would give us some good opportunities.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, as you can see, James tied Lawrence's shoes this time, so he tripped and fell and broke the idol instead of stealing it. So
Yeah, and the idol broke, of course. So now the butterfly appears to be taking that all the way up there.
Yeah, so the butterfly, for some reason, stacking the idol on top of the T-Rex, and I can imagine it's going to result in a natural disaster of epic proportions. Oh, and
Yeah.
there he goes.
It appears we are running out of time. So thank you, John. We appreciate all the feedback you've given us and you being here. Next game, of course, is going to be Minor Scale, and we're going to show the trailer for them before they come on. So thank you very much, John.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. We're so happy to be here. My name is Craig Nash. I work as a designer here.
My name is Max. I'm one of the engineers on the team.
My name is Tyler. I'm the technical artist for the team.
And then, of course, we are joined by our two professors, Roger and Fernando, and we are ridiculously excited to welcome Ken Moody. He's a senior game designer at Shell Games. If you'd like to talk about yourself.
Hi there. Yes, I am a senior game designer at Shell Games. Only recently can I say that to be the case. I've been there for about a month, but this opportunity came up, and how could I pass? I'm previously from Neversoft and Shiny Entertainment. Probably most relevant to this title is that I was a designer on the Guitar Hero franchise for the Activision Neversoft period of that franchise's life.
Perfect. And we are so grateful that you could be here and join us today. So to get into it, Minor Scale is a rhythm-based tower defense game where the player controls their towers, which we call critters, to conduct a buggy band of sorts through the rhythm game, where they defend against the enemies, which we affectionately call the creepy crawlies, threatening their town and trying to eliminate their vibe and their kind of musical spirit. So we were largely inspired by, obviously, most traditional tower defense games, such as Bloons Tower Defense, Kingdom Rush, stuff like that. But we really wanted to strive towards combining rhythm with the tower defense game and taking on that challenge of having both interact with each other. So now we'll go straight to the live gameplay. So as of right now, we've spent a lot of the semester working on getting a lot of our core mechanics into the system. One of the biggest challenges that we've had to approach, which has been super unique, is the fact that there isn't really a set default for tower defense. A lot of the times we do have to build a lot of our mechanics from the ground up, which has presented a unique challenge for us, which we've been very excited to kind of undertake. As a result, we've created a lot of the systems within the game. So the rhythm systems, custom made, we really emphasize on the music and making sure that the rhythm itself feels very musical. So we've worked a lot with our composer and our engineers and assorted other designers to make it feel like we really interact with the music through the rhythm game and the tower defense.
So one of the ways we really stressed on doing this is that instead of in a lot of rhythm game or a lot of tower defense games, the towers attack on their own. In our game, the notes coming down the left on that kind of track board, you have to hit those notes for the towers to fire at all. We've played around with a couple different versions of this, with the towers firing automatically, kind of a more traditional, like a flow base for the notes to flow into a target. So it's something we're kind of actively iterating on and looking to kind of hone in, as we think that this is one of the things that makes our game stand out is these two pieces together. So we want to make sure that it feels good, looks good, and then also plays well too. So that's one of the things. In the gameplay, you'll see pretty kind of normal tower defense mechanics, crawlies spawning in from the top left, flowing around, the towers attacking them. We do have also a couple of features we built out for our designers within this level. As far as balancing the towers, changing some stats around as far as their damage and range. As you can see, we still have some work to do on balancing that, because the waves are a little balanced in favor of the crawlies at the moment, unless you get it just right. But hopefully our Edward here, or one of our designers who is playing for us, can get it better this time around. So there's also another feature we have in the game, which you can see at the top of the screen, is the crescendo, where if you do well enough or repeatedly throughout the plane of the game, you get a kind of backup safety net. So maybe this time around, Edward will need to do that. Also, you can see the towers have a upgrade feature. So you can zone in for this one, which is our cord critter that we have currently in the game. That expands their single attack to a kind of a scatter shot, or a chain attack that attacks multiple critters, or multiple crawlies, We have our main goal for the upgrade system is to kind of expand it so that each tower has a unique upgrade kind of suited to the instrument family that it's representing, which is another one of the kind of design ideas we're focusing on, is that there's a different kind of class of instrument for each of our tower types. As I said, we have the core tower in currently. We're planning on a bass tower, a conductor tower, and then a melody tower, if I'm not mistaken, Craig. So each of those is going to have kind of a different attack, a different upgrade that kind of keeps it unique and in line with the style that it's going. The base attack right now, we're kind of thinking something along the lines of like a shockwave, the upgrade being something kind of like a chain reaction, like an echo or a reverb. Melody and conductor, we're still playing around with. We're still pretty early on development. We're only 8 weeks in, so that's definitely something we're looking to refine and expand upon as we get further along in development. So
we do have a lot of plans, like Max just said. We are 8 weeks in, so we were really looking at focusing on our core mechanics, getting the initial gameplay loop through, and then we can really expand on it for the next 20 weeks that we have to work as this team. So like he said before, we have that emphasis on working on the towers, creating different towers. So we have a bunch of different tower upgrades. We have a bunch of different tower classes that we're looking into. In addition, we also wanted to look at enemies and new map designs. So we want there to be multiple maps that the players can iterate on, and then intrinsically we'll create a new balancing challenge of how we approach the towers in that, whether we have unique towers to that or whether we use the same towers. We want to make sure that the game feels balanced enough where the player always feels challenged, but we also don't want the player falling into the trap that can happen in tower defense games where they use the same strategy on every map, and frequently it gets kind of old and boring. So we wanted to make sure that we have that nice level to both as well.
I'm wondering, just so we make sure that we get all the comments we can in the time, Kenneth, do you have any feedback or thoughts so far?
Well, I'm very impressed at how far you've come in a mere 8 weeks, especially considering that you've chosen to do a hybrid genre game here. And Tower defense is not something I'm super familiar with, but rhythm games are very tough to put together, as I'm sure you have found, because it's a whole new way of thinking about time. And it's not too many game engines support that kind of stuff right out of the box. So getting those fundamentals down for how your game thinks about time and musical time specifically can be a big hurdle, but it looks like you've made a lot of progress on that already. So impressed so far.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We've worked really closely with, like we said before, the engineering team, obviously getting, like you said, the time down with the different ticks in the system, but also all of our music is custom done by our composer Justin. So we worked really closely with him as well to make sure that the game feels musical and that the rhythm system feels balanced in a way where it feels correct where we hit the buttons, which is one of the biggest parts of rhythm games, of course. We really wanted to focus on making it feel musical. So hitting both those, the timing and the music overlapping, was a really big focus for us during the semester, and we spent a lot of time with the different teams.
How did you guys do it? Like, how did you get it to work out with the music? What system are you using?
So this is honestly, this is kind of, it's not from scratch per se, because we're leaning on Unreal's existing kind of tick system and kind of, you know, core game loop. But the way that it goes is that there is a central kind of object within the game that is keeping track of all of the notes that are currently on the screen and all the towers that are currently on the screen, and then reads in a value from the song data, which in combination we were using MIDI data that we threw a program together to parse the MIDI data from the songs that we were composing, which then gives us the beat map, and then this kind of central game object reads that beat map, keeps track of the game tick, and then calculates when the next song tick is, the song beat, because right now it's set up to track each beat on an eighth note in 135 time, or 135 beats per minute, I believe. And so between those 3 or 4 kind of data point sets, it basically moves the relevant things, because the crawlies are separate from that, but the towers, the notes, and the towers firing are all kind of on that. With 135, it's 0.44 seconds. So it just sums up all its ticks, checks the next beat, and then fires kind of things based on the input for that. So that's how we're currently doing it, because we wanted to go with this sequencer approach where it was all distinct beats rather than kind of more linear, fluid, or more fluid representation of the notes. So that's the current approach to it.
One thing I would say is that as a rhythm game, every element of the game should be supporting that beat to keep the player in time when they need to hit the button. I'm noticing like the crawlies currently come and they move very smoothly, and you've already got a grid in there. It'd be great if they kind of leapt from grid space to grid space in time to the music, pulsed in time to the music. I noticed they're like they're 2D sprites, so you could have them like squash and stretch, kind of not only animate them walking, but also have them sort of dance into the scene more than crawl into the scene. And any element that you can get to support that rhythmic pulse will really help your player lock onto that when they're trying to hit the button in time.
Yeah, we already had plans to add the squash and stretch and bops animations into the sprites, but the walking incrementally to better match the beat. It's a wonderful idea, and thanks for bringing that up.
I think that was something the professors had hinted on as far as wanting to. It's something we had gotten feedback on earlier, and then our original prototype. We had more of a fluid approach. So the critters being a part of that, I think, will be it's definitely valuable feedback that will be I think that's kind of, there's that missing piece we're not quite sure of where it is as far as getting it all to flow together. We're not sure if it's a position of things on screen, if the rhythm game needs to kind of be re-represented or what it is. But I think between crawlies and changing that, all the frameworks there, so it should be a very doable change for us on mechanic design. So we'll be definitely iterating that over the next semester and hopefully coming up with a nice, pretty and rhythmic solution for that. So,
team, I know accessibility was important to you. Do you want to tell Kenneth a bit about that?
Yeah, so moving forward, we really wanted to focus on accessibility. So we've kind of tried to pay really close attention to making the game really accessible for everybody. So that's both in control systems and also in like the colors. So we wanted to make sure that it was easy to play, depending on if you could see all the full range of colors or if you had color blindness. We also were looking into a custom controller just built by another teammate. So we've been kind of looking into these different solutions to move forward. Accessibility has always been kind of one of those focus points for our team, and we really wanted to emphasize that throughout the game.
Kenneth, I think you started to say something there, and we got sidetracked. What was?
Oh, well, a note on the accessibility. That's awesome that you're considering that this early in development, because oftentimes it's something like, okay, we have our game. Now how can we make it more accessible? And that's definitely something that you need to fold into the entire development scheme and look for opportunities to get it in there, even as early as you are. I was going to say that I really like the idea of the different instruments making up different sorts of tower defense weapons, and it'd be really cool to sort of hear parts of the music become available. Like if you have, say, the violin only plays when you have violin towers there, and then when the drums come in, then you hear those as well, and perhaps their volume is associated to how many of the towers that you have, so that it sort of what you see and what you hear are both supporting the same concept.
Sweet. We absolutely will take all of your feedback and suggestions to heart. We have a team that obviously was taking notes during this, and so we're super excited to kind of move forward with the suggestions you have given. Unfortunately, we are out of time now, but we thank you so much for coming and
Kenneth,
giving your time. Super valuable.
Yes, excellent feedback, Kenneth. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We're
Very
super
cool,
excited.
very unique game. I like it.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, we're super excited to hand it over to Hell of a Rocket. So here's their trailer coming up, and the rest of the team.
First season, in the first game, with shining sweaty ran the dark fields, seeking victory where the dark monsters were clobbering, and those that had the twins reconvened in the Ball Swinger.
Hi
That was a
there.
scary trailer.
That
Yes.
was amazing.
You just saw the trailer for Hell of a Racket. I'm Ben. I'm one of the designers. This is Kaz Gunther. He's also a designer. We have Seth Hempel playing our game for the live gameplay, and our industry professional here, Kat Townsend, who is a production coordinator at Raven Software. We're really excited to have you and have some industry eyes on everything and get some good feedback. So if you want to introduce yourself and give us some background so that people watching and then also us have a good idea of what you're good at and kind of your history.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Kat Townsend. I work at Raven Software currently. I'm an art outsourcing coordinator. I actually graduated from the University of Utah 2 years ago. So really excited to be here and help you guys out. I mainly focus on art personally, but I do have a little bit of work in like game design and things like that.
Yeah.
Kat, thanks for coming back. We really appreciate it.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
of course.
much.
And Kaz, do you want to give a quick overview of what our game's about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Hell of a Racket is an arena-based first-person movement swinger, as we've called it, where instead of using shooting guns, you instead reflect the projectiles of your enemies back at them.
Yeah, we really kind of wanted to capitalize on the combination between sports games and movement shooters, which is kind of a weird kind of genre mix, but for me, one of the things I was so interested
about in this product is that both things have kind of two things that make them really cool, which is that they're really focused on timing and rhythm, and that getting that timing and rhythm down really well leads to these really awesome kind of badass moments in games like Doom and stuff. You have these cool like spinning around and shooting people in the head and watching stuff explode. And then in sports games, you have these like great plays that happen where you're like, oh hell yeah, I got that down. Like that was really cool. And it comes with a low barrier of entry and a high skill ceiling. And I think mixing those two things together, getting the rhythm that's inherent in both, and then adding that kind of sports flair to it really is a good combo. And I hope that we can kind of show that by showing off what we've got in our alpha so far and how we focused on getting the rhythm and stuff done.
Yeah. So you'll see, unfortunately, we weren't able to get any like enemy textures in. We spent a lot of our time sitting down and trying to get the base gameplay really nailed down.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, we do have quite a lot of art assets right now that have been textured. We've been doing a really interesting sort of like grimy but bright color, semi-realistic style, hand-painted textures by a lot of the artists on our team who are really, really talented with the texture painting stuff. Like Kaz said, we don't have a lot to show in the alpha build so far, just because we wanted to focus on getting the level design specifically figured out with the sort of modular system we're going for before we start putting all those, tileable assets and then the bigger hero assets in, and kind of making sure that we know exactly how the gameplay needs to feel so that the artist can make sure they're creating assets that serve to lift the gameplay up and to sort of make the whole experience better rather than having art that kind of is disjointed from everything. So that's a big focus for us.
This is looking awesome. Honestly, I love the art style. I like all the colors that are going on right now.
Yeah, we tried to, since we didn't have those textures, to really just use some of the base material colors to give an idea of sort of what we're doing. Oh, you'll see right now, real quick. So this is one of the bosses for the game, or the main boss. Once we actually have the whole system eliminated, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. He's Pickleball Satan because Kaz.
Oh yeah. All tennis players hate pickleball players because they take up the tennis courts for their game instead of the right game.
Yes, the right game obviously being tennis. So we wanted to sort of show that. Again, we're still working on the model, so we're using a placeholder right now, which is a open source asset we found of Nicolas Cage's face on a anthropomorphic pickle. We felt that was a good sort of stand-in and really fits with the tone of the game that we're going for in the long run, which is that kind of parody aspect. Obviously there's a lot of similarities with games like Doom and things like that, but we wanted to kind of kick up the goofy aspect of it a little bit so that, it's obvious that we're having fun with it, and then hopefully people that are playing with it are having fun and focusing more on just doing stuff that's cool and not taking everything going on super seriously.
Yeah, some immediate feedback that I can see right now is I'd probably definitely go for a little bit more color contrast with the UI elements, just so it stands out a bit more against all the like reds and oranges.
Yeah, for sure.
And then also like adding some cool, just a cool noise whenever you hit the ball, just to really help out with that. Like,
get that satisfying thwack.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
I definitely agree. We have a really great audio designer who's actually been working with Fmod integration in our game, and really getting a lot of that stuff in. As you can see, we do have like material-based footsteps in the game already, which has been really cool. And yeah, we're hoping to get racket sound feedback in there really well. Especially one of the big things we wanted to focus on was accessibility, starting from the very beginning. A lot of the UI elements right now are kind of placeholdery as we figure out exactly what the best ways to accommodate, the UI elements in a way that is accessible for all sorts of different people. So finding ways to not just use contrasting color, but find shapes and things that are easy for colorblind individuals and things like that to determine, and then also using sound and visual indicators in combination. Hopefully we can get a really good reticle system in to communicate reflection stuff, and then also that sound feedback to let people know, like, okay, did you melee attack, or did you reflect in the right range, or did you whiff it? Like, what is kind of going on there.
Yeah. And another thing that would be super awesome is having like eventually do like cool particle effects with the balls, like as they're
That would be
going.
cool,
I'm sure
yeah.
you guys have something planned, but it would be really cool to have like a trail going just for easier tracking, and just have it stand out more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that we've actually been working on for the reflection system is getting a little bit of a homing thing in there, so that when you do reflect something, it will always actually be hitting something.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time working on that, and there's still some changes that need to be made just from getting this alpha build done and playtesting with that stable build, figuring out what needs to change about that whole system, tuning that. I think actually you mentioned particle effects and adding that to it. I think there's definitely a lot we can do using sort of VFX and art stuff with the projectiles to not just on a UI level but in the game as well, to better communicate like directionality, especially because we have that homing stuff. I think that's would be very helpful for communicating to the player where the ball exactly is going.
For sure. So do you guys have a plan for what you're gonna do for the enemy characters yet, or still in progress?
What is it? So far we have 3 planned enemies, and their models are already figured out. We just have to get them in there, and so we have the football demon, which will charge and attack you.
And those we do have sort of prototype versions of them in right now. The blue squares are the football demon. And
Okay,
then
cool.
Look like a football player.
We have the soccer demon, which is going to be your roundabout basic generalist character, which are the purple ones, right?
No, I think the pink is the golf demon right now.
Yeah, and then the third one is the golf demon that will just keep at a distance and spray you with different projectiles.
Yeah, I know Seth, who's playing the game right now, did a lot of the design work on the enemies, and that was something we really wanted to figure out is like, how can we use this sort of jokey sports motif that we have that I think is a lot of fun, and then kind of use that not just as inspiration, but work it into the gameplay that we've gotten figured out, so that it really, again, like, we want to highlight and pick up that main character controller interaction and the reflection and movement and the dynamics of that, and really design all the enemies around that. So having a range between this close melee and the kind of snipery golf demons, I think, does a really good job of encouraging people to find unique ways to move around the environment. Kaz, did you want to real quick talk a little bit about the level design? Because we haven't brought that up, and I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, of course. So how we're planning on handling the level is, if you notice, there's a lot of hexagons on the field, and the whole point of those are that we're later on going to have it where they're going to change from level to level. So what would happen is, I think we're going to have them like go down, and then they come up. Certain other pillars will come up with different, like they might have a power up, or they might have an enemy, and then that way we're able to have this modular system of creating many different levels, and we can get a greater variety in what you can do in the game.
Yeah, we also wanted to, we've already started working on making 3D models of different hexagons of like tunnels running through the middle of them and walls on top of them and stuff. And sort of the main reason we wanted to do that is because it's really easily scopable. Having this main level with things in it that move between like a wave and round system, right? You kill 5 waves, and then round 1 ends, and then all the hexagons move and change their orientation a little bit, just using event scripting and things like that in Unreal. And it makes it really easy for us to design lots of unique rounds quickly with the fairly limited development time that we have, and make stuff that is still really interesting and changes movement a lot, instead of being locked into kind of what we initially started with, which was a really big coliseum with lots of ramps and stuff. And we realized, like, making it a little smaller and having that dynamic moving field might give us a lot more variety in what's going on. Oh, did we run into that?
Yeah, unfortunately, we've had a bug plaguing us where death basically locks you out of playing the game.
Oh, no worries at all.
Yeah, we have thought we have stomped that bug out like 3 times at this point, and it keeps coming back.
Yep. Were you
Something
gonna
like that.
offer some more feedback?
Yeah, I was gonna say I think that level design is a fantastic idea. Just not having to reload into a different map every
Yeah.
level that just takes a whole level of pain out of the game. So I like that, and it keeps it. It seems like a very fast-paced game when it's going to be all put together. So I think that will really help just to like keep it all going.
Thank
so
you.
that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and then another thing that just real quick, sorry.
No, you're good.
It looks like did I see wall riding going on there?
Yeah, that was something
Okay,
we
cool.
kind of were debating a lot in the beginning, of like, should we have this, should we not? And then we kind of thought about it, and we're like, actually, it's really badass and cool, so we're gonna do it. We spent a lot of time figuring out the best way to do it, and I think we got something that works without being sort of in the way too much, because you don't have to worry about stretching your fingers all over the place. The way it's implemented right now, it just sort of happens, and you can aim.
That's awesome.
Well, Kat, thank you so much for all the advice you've given us and the questions, and I hope that everybody watching and you as well got a really good look at what we're doing with our alpha so far, and hopefully, in the next semester when we've got that going, we can show you all the progress we made and how cool it's going to be. So I want to throw it off with that to Your Average Bear, who's going to be up next, and hopefully you guys enjoy that as well.
What's going on, everybody? Well, we're Your Average Bear. I'm Devin, and this is...
I'm Mikey, gameplay engineer.
And then we have our industry guest with us today, who is Chandler from Red Games, who's a QA lead. Would you like to talk about yourself at all, Chandler?
Oh, yeah, sure. So like you said, I'm a QA lead at Red Games Company. I've worked on a couple games, Lego Brawls, Transformers Tactical Arena, mostly in the mobile space.
Super cool.
Yeah,
We're glad to have
awesome for you to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super cool to have us with you
Thanks,
today.
glad to be here.
All right. Well, before we get into gameplay, I'd like to introduce our game to you guys. Essentially, in our game, you are a black bear in an aspen forest, and you're trying to use the tools in your environment to steal food from the campers. So today, we'll be showing off some of our tools. So let's go get a quest and talk to some of the animals. And this is our main tree. This is our hub, our safe tree, if you will. And in this area, you'll go get quests from critters, and you'll basically be stealing specific food items for them. So in this case, this creature has asked us to get a hot dog. So let's get a survey of the area and see what we're looking at. So this is a vault mechanic. You can climb as black bears do in real life, and we can see a few figures in the environment. So we have red figures, which are the rangers. The rangers carry tranquilizer darts, and they'll want to stop your antics. So we got to avoid them. And then the campers can't hurt you. They're the yellow figures. However, they will alert the rangers to your presence. So it's a good job. We're making sure to avoid them, so they don't tell the rangers, and the rangers don't get us with the tranq darts. So let's look at some of our tools for how we might go about getting the food. So, looking at our toolbar, we have our rocks. So we can throw rocks. Those can gather attention from the campers and from the rangers. We have our banana peels, which we can throw in their way to get them to slip and debilitate them. We have the skunk bombs, very stinky, that will repel the campers and rangers and block vision. And then we have the branch, which is currently a cube, but in the future the bear would pose very masterfully with the branches to guide himself. So now we're going to go into this bush here. This bush is always reliable cover. It always makes sure that we can keep ourselves hidden. As you can see, they pass us right by and don't notice us. Now we're going to get behind this big cabin structure. And as you can see, there's our guy Cool, our lovely player. What's up, guy? Now we're going to climb. We're going to climb this big tree in the corner here and get even a better vantage point of what we're looking at for our level. And as you can see, we can even get a better view. We have some tents in the back of the level, and then we're in the more of the cabin area. And so let's jump down and look for some more hot dogs. Oh, spin! Very nice, guy. I'll make sure we don't.
Graceful.
Yeah, I know. Make sure we don't get that guy's attention. Right there is our vending machine. Well, you'll be able to get some random items. Currently, it only has rocks. But in the future, you could get a few items from the vending machine. All right, and then to the left, you can see one of our tunnels, which you'll be able to use fast travel. And we'll see, guy will throw this rock. Bee tornado! As you can see, we've debilitated the ones that are close to the range of the beehive. And the beehive will act as a distraction to further allow you to sneak around. And so, as you can see, we're making sure to use cover. We're making sure to keep in mind and going from cover to cover stealthily. And you can see there's more rocks to pick up on the ground, so we're picking up some more rocks. Very nice. And so we're making sure we're staying stocked up on items so we can keep drawing attention and we can use this cover like we're using the skunk bob right now again. Back to the bush. Very nice. All right.
So that's our main loop for the design, our core gameplay loop. We'll get a quest from one of the characters back at the safe zone where Guy's heading back to right now. And you see this tunnel system. Guy, you want to check out that tunnel system? So it's kind of like a fast travel point that we can use to quickly maneuver out through the level. This level for our demonstration is kind of small. In our main game, which comes out in May or April, late April, it will be much larger, much more quests, and this is only 8 weeks of development actually. So guys, using the skunk bomb again to get out of the way, we're talking about, like, for our inspiration we have Metal Gear Solid 5, Hitman, and that's for like the design. Do you want to talk about our art design?
Yeah, of course. So for our art design, we took a lot of notes from our contemporaries. So think things like Donut County or Untitled Goose Game. They have more of a inviting sort of for everybody, silly comedic nature, very lighthearted, very inviting. And we want to get a similar vibe for our game. So the art team had a lot of discussions on color palette. How we made a color Bible. We want to have a specific style for our game, so it feels very unified and it elicits the sort of feeling we want players to have. And sort of the inspiration for our game is we looked at games like Metal Gear Solid or other stealth games. They tend to be very mature in nature. They tend to be very serious in tone most of the time. And the question that was, could we make a stealth game that was comedy essentially? Could we make something that was silly? And so that's this game is our answer to that. How can we make a stealth game funny and silly and be more approachable to a different kind of audience? And so that's your average bear. And as we can see, Guy has returned back to the tree and is getting another vantage point. And in terms of other art design features, we thought a lot about the design of the bear, the shapes we were using. We wanted him to be friendly and kind of follow the rest of the design of the game. And we also plan to make future rangers. You want to talk about some of the rangers, Mikey?
Yeah, so in our game we have 4 types of AI. We have the basic campers, rangers, trackers, and hunters. So starting with campers, they're basically your typical AI that's just like an NPC kind of. They're mostly in an idle state, maybe doing some idling animations. For example, maybe they're cooking something or they're cleaning something up. And then there's rangers, and those are your typical like police, for lack of a better term. They're kind of patrolling the level, looking for you, trying to stop you from causing mischief. So, and then we also have our tracker and hunter, which aren't in the game right now but are in development. The tracker will be going out throughout the level, kind of using an AI coordinator to track down the bear based on, like, you can see they're leaving footsteps behind them, and they'll kind of be placing things as an engineering level, trying to track down from behind. And then that will keep you out of cover, like hiding in the bush. They'll be able to find you if you're hiding in a bush for too long. So it keeps you on the move. We want to change up the gameplay pacing a little bit with that character. Then we also have the hunters, and those are like, think your typical sniper. They're kind of elevated above ground, trying to catch you off guard from sneaking into the camp too easily. So you'll have to break from the core gameplay loop, sneak up around them, take them out, or find a way to distract them, and then progress into the campsite.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Thank you. So it looks like we're going to the campsite, or like the tent side of the level. This part of the level tends to be a bit more difficult. We plan to actually. Do you want to talk about some of the future plans for level design we have?
Yeah, we have a lot of plans for level design. One of them, as you can see, our level is very flat right now. We're going to introduce a lot more verticality into our level. So you can see kind of on the sides we have like some tree kind of things with the blocks where you can climb up right there. But we're going to introduce some more aspects where you can just get above the level, because a lot of our loop is based off of the surveillance of the patrol pass, kind of understanding what's everybody's going on, and then survey, plan, and then attack, and then get back out and do it again, kind of a thing. So we're trying to introduce a lot more verticality in our level design. Also, we have a great quest system that we've made that will be easily implementable to add more food with different NPCs in the safe zone. And we also want to talk about our bear system, bear system.
Yeah, and so it looks like the gong, you just heard the gong go off. That is our indicator that we have been sighted. And so now that we know the rangers are aware of our presence, and they have been alerted, actually. And so now we will be trying to sneakily, escape their attention. And it looks like Guy's doing a pretty good job. He's snuck into this bush and used the skunk bob as some additional cover. So good job on Guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then in terms of art for future plans, we definitely want to expand our SFX right now. Currently, the gong's kind of the main one we have at the moment, but we really want to expand the SFX. We really want to immerse you more, especially with stealth games. They tend to be quieter, but their sound effects, they mean a lot. They add a lot of clarity. They let you know a lot more information. So we want to add a feeling to immerse you more in that stealth. So like the tunnels, maybe you'll feel some rummaging around of dirt, or if you were to throw a rock, you would hear that rock, and so it makes everything feel more tangible in your environment. And so that's some future stuff there. We want to expand the UI. We want to make things more clear on that front. We'll have basically the way the bear communicates with the animals that's giving deliveries to when it's not in the tree will be through a food delivery app called Uber Eat. Trademark. The Uber Eat will be essentially where you keep track of your quests, and they will say what food they're looking for, how much they want. And if from Uber Eat, when you turn in your quest, you'll get ratings, and that's the main goal, to be stealthy, to sneak around well, and you'll get good ratings from the animals in the forest.
Okay, cool. That's I think that's a great little gameplay loop, and I love the way you're bringing in something. The mechanics from stealth games are usually very heavy, right, and very tense, and I like this kind of balance out against a more fun art style, and I think that works into the world really well. So I like the sound effects adaptation that you mentioned. Sounds like it's a great idea. I would love to see more sounds. Obviously you're early in development here, but I think sounds are a great opportunity for more of that comedy and silliness,
for sure.
Especially since stealth games are subtle, right? This one's a little more out there, silly. And I wouldn't say, I guess I sort of say boisterous. It's fun and not as intense as a stealth game. So I'd like to see sound effects and your world is great. So just keep leaning into the art style is awesome.
Thank you so much. So that's the basic overview of our game so far. We want to add more verticality, more types of quests, better UI. We have a lot of things planned currently, and we have a lot of future plans for development, like we talked about. In terms of additional things for like the Rangers, we talked about the mechanical side. On the art side of things, we specifically have been going through rounds of concepting to make each type of Ranger distinct. So when you see a Ranger, you're not confused on which one it is. You know if it's a basic Ranger, you know if it's a hunter, you know if it's a tracker. We want to make sure those shapes are clear and they still match the world, and you can still have a bit more of that humor with those characters. And I think we will probably do the similar thing with campers. I think camping in general there's a lot of comedy that can play into what people are doing on their camp trips. So that's a lot of stuff we want to go into as we continue furthering development and fleshing out this world.
Cool. Yeah, Those sound like some great ideas, and I'd love to see the way this thing evolves. I have to say, I really love these tutorials that are active in the world.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great opportunity to kind of add a little bit of interplay with the stealth mechanics as well. Maybe if you have some sort of diegetic in-world objects that trigger these mechanics, or sorry, these tutorials.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And we'll probably go for more of that sort of diegetic integrated system. For now, this seemed like the simplest way to make sure that if you were coming into the world, first time, fresh, that you would be able to find these things quickly, especially since a lot of our NPCs right now don't have full models. Those things are going to be in the works soon, but especially since they don't have qualified models right now, making sure you can just see the text straight up is what we thought was important at this stage of the game.
Absolutely.
But yeah, in terms of tech art, we want to do a couple more things. Like with this, like for like bushes like these, we want to add things like vignettes on like the edge of the screen to add more of a sense of like you're in the bush. You have like this like leafy little dithered effect, stuff like that. We want to add further tech art stuff too to really help sort of bring that world to life. Because I think that's something that's really important, especially with a stealth game, is feeling immersed, feeling that this world is really believable, even if it's really boisterous, right? You can laugh at it, but you're like, you feel like you're in it. You're really invested in it. And I think that's an important thing of a game too.
Yes, and immersion's great for stealth games, and that's what's really adds the tension, and then the art style cuts it, right? So, yeah, I think that's great. Stay focused on the art. I think the mechanics are really strong, and I think the evolution of the art is great.
Thanks so much.
Chandler. I think we're going to show Wretched Depths trailer right now. Thank you so much for being with us, Chandler. It was awesome.
And thank you, campers.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey everybody, how's it going? My name's Akash.
And my name's Ryan, and we're here today to present Wretched Depths.
Yep, and playing for us today is Xavier.
And we're delighted to introduce Joe Carney.
He's a tech artist at Sunblick Entertainment. Joe, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Hi, yeah. So I'm a tech artist, which means that I do a lot of rigging, VFX, and a bunch of tool work. So helping get stuff into the game.
Very cool.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you for being with us here, Joe. We really appreciate you coming in and checking these games out.
Really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
today.
I've been racking my brain all morning about thinking like, what is Wretched Depths? I was like, is it underwater? Is it like Subnautica? Or are we going down to the depths of the caverns? But a fishing game? That's awesome. I'm so excited to see it.
We can give you a little bit of insight right now. So Wretched Depths is a PlayStation 1 style horror fishing game. So we have gone completely for the PlayStation 1 style aesthetic. That is the goal of our game. It's a horror game, and yeah, the deeper you go, the scarier it gets.
Yep.
So,
story's going to be a very important part of our game, so we're working to weave in a world that's really been sort of corrupted by the things around it.
Yep.
And so we're trying to create a lot of atmosphere in our game going forward.
Yep.
You can see here our main mechanic, which is fishing. We failed to catch the fish because we have a tension mechanic that involves as the fish continues to pull on the lure, it will sort of build up tension in the rod, and then you can't catch the fish. So you have to sort of take breaks, and that's currently telegraphed to the player through the line color.
do you have any feedback on maybe how we could indicate that a little bit better? Because we've actually kind of been like wondering if there's like a better visual way to maybe indicate line snapping or some sort of tension.
Yeah, I'd love to see the line wiggle and like some kind of like stress marks around it, or maybe even the fish itself could telegraph in some way that it's about to get away with your lure, or it's
Okay.
about to snap the line.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Currently, the character playing, her name is Sam. She actually came to this town because of a fishing contest, but when she got there, she realized nobody else was aware of this fishing contest, and then she just decided to fish anyway. But the more she fished, the more she noticed that this is a weirder town than one would think. So,
Uh-huh.
Yep.
You can see there one of our characters, the Herald, who's supposed to be sort of a harbinger of the events to come. He will show up more in the later versions of the game. But we wanted to make sure to get him in this to show it off.
Yep.
Here you can see our inventory system, where you can see that we have fish stored in a grid-like array. Eventually, they'll be able to take multiple grid spaces. Additionally, here's our tools. So we currently have Dad's lure equipped and a rod as well.
And then,
I'm loving the feel of the UI, like that sort of classic PS1 N64 UI where it's sort of more embedded in the game environment rather than just, sprites.
Yeah, we were trying to go for like a Resident Evil style kind of like inventory system, so I'm glad you picked that up.
And as you can see, sort of the deeper we go into the water, the more strong the effect of the filter is on the camera. And you can see that it sort of gets darker and redder. And we want to make sure to like give this very dark, gritty feeling to the deeper depths of our water. Do you think there's as a tech artist, do you think there's a better way to create shaders that would, sort of give that effect? Things we should strive for?
The thought that came into my mind immediately, and I was going to ask you about this, is like, are you using post-processing effects and like volumes to kind of transition from one to the other? So like that's a good step. I'm not much of a render guy, but the rendering I do, oh, that's a great fish.
Yes.
Is I do a lot of shader graph stuff, and I know that there are special keywords that you can embed into shaders that can react to all sorts of stuff alike. So you can have it react to depth, for example, like how deep you are. So maybe you can have sort of a uniform shader that is reacting to how deep you are in the water.
That's actually
yeah, that's a good idea.
Because the way the progression system actually kind of works in our game, it is depth based. So the more you fish, the more money you get. The more money you get, the more lures you unlock, and the more lures you unlock, the deeper you can go. So that's some great feedback.
Speaking of progression, we do have sort of a core town, which I believe we'll show off here in a minute. That is sort of the hub for our system and its gameplay system, sort of getting the upgrades. You purchase them in this town, and this town sort of can tell our story too. In later builds, we're going to have dialogue that branches and sort of continues as we progress into the game, and you'll be able to see it here in a sec.
Real quick, we also have a journal that, if you pull that up. So we have a fishlopedia, as we like to call it, that kind of actually keeps track. It's a little bit like a Pokédex. It keeps track of like the fish you catch, and that's something. Our way of kind of embedding the thoughts and characters of Sam is like having a journal that kind of reflects her thoughts as she catches more things, kind of how she's feeling about the town and stuff like that. So Fishlopedia is a part of that.
Yeah, and this is our town. It's a small, sort of alpine aesthetic town, and we'll be able to go here in a sec into Mike's fishing store, which is where we're going to be spending a lot of our time purchasing upgrades, sort of selling off the fish that we catch.
Yep. It's just the placeholder merchants, but So yeah.
So, like I said, I'm a tools guy, and so I immediately spotted like bringing up that debug menu. How do you guys approach making tools to help your development cycle?
Yeah, when we implement systems, we want to make sure that we have tools immediately available so that we can thoroughly test the things we've implemented, which is why we put in that debug menu so early. So we create a lot of tests for objects in gyms, a lot of sort of testing tools within debug menus to sort of play with those variables, especially because we have saves and we have to load those saves. We have a system of immediately being able to update that save data as well.
Yep.
So we can access many states of our game.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, because we also have like stuff like a day-night cycle. There's money involved and stuff. So anything to test a specific situation, something we try to put into the debug menu. Real quick though, I was wondering if you had any feedback for the aesthetic of the town itself, like, because we're trying to give kind of like a horror, kind of uncanny kind of vibe going on in the town, where it's like you'll notice it's a little bit off, and then the deeper you get, the more off it'll get.
Yeah, I actually really like horror movies, and my favorite kinds of horror movies are the not jump scary, but like the kind of quiet ones, like Hereditary or The Witch. And what your town is missing is animation, obviously. But what it is kind of working for it is how empty it is. Like it feels empty. It feels like when you're walking down a street like by yourself and there's no one around, that's already eerie.
Okay.
But I think what could ratchet that up is having characters around, having characters that are sort of like following you with their heads just to make you feel like you're being
definitely
watched.
That's perfect, actually.
That's a fantastic suggestion.
For second semester, we are planning on adding some NPCs that kind of just exist in the town.
Yeah, having them follow the player would be a great idea.
Yeah, that
with
is
their
a
eyes.
fantastic idea.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that feedback. Do you think maybe we could add like more fog or anything, or do you think that part of the town is like all right?
Yeah, I mean, fog is great, right? It's like atmospheric. It's almost in the name. So, I mean, it kind of depends on. Didn't you mention that you're going to have like a day-night cycle?
Yes, we do have a day-night cycle.
Yeah. There are some pretty good examples of games that like handle like the difference between day and night really well. I think Dying Light like depends on you having like all of a sudden it's night, now you're screwed, you know, because there's zombies everywhere.
Yep.
So if you wanted to kind of incorporate something like that, like when it's nighttime in that town, is there something you can add, or is there something you can tweak to the buildings, to the environment, to make the town feel extra creepy during night? Like maybe at night all the leaves on the trees disappear, just something that the players can notice.
That's actually also a little bit part of our plan is the lake itself. The deeper you get, we're planning on having the area around the lake be more messed up. So there's going to be like dying shrubbery, maybe some blood or something like that.
The corruption is basically spreading to the world around the lake is the idea. And the further you go and the more fish you sell to the town, the more that corruption spreads. So
yeah. Narratively, are the people in the town like weirded out that someone's actually fishing in this crazy fishing pond again?
So this is sort of a recently opened fishing trench. Like, no one really knows what's going on, but it's sort of that sense of horror where you have people that sort of accept this within their world, and the player is the one that's put off by it. So it's that complacency with, you know, with the things around them that they shouldn't be complacent with, that we wanted to have as a main theme in our game. So yeah. And you can obviously see that the designs of the fish are very upsetting, so it's very strange to have them so complacent with these fish.
That's one thing I'm actually really happy about. Our fish team went absolutely insane with all the crazy, awesome designs that they had going on, a bunch of really nice animations. So, do you have any feedback for that specifically? Maybe like the models of the fish, do you think they're nice? Or do you have anything that you could maybe give advice for?
I definitely think they're nice. I think so far this the few examples that I've seen, like I love the ratcheting up of the weirdness. Like I think the first fish you caught was, you know, it was a fish. It was a nice little fish. There's no problems here. And then as soon as you get down into that hole with that crazy like clownfish, anglerfish with like the human teeth, I think that's been effective so far for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, that definitely was something we were trying to do, and we'll definitely do more in our finalized build, is to have that sort of, I called it a gradient of horror is how I described it in my initial pitch. But yeah, that's definitely appreciated that that's noticed.
One thing I was wondering about is, we've had this pop up in playtest, the level of murkiness of the water. My idea kind of is like, maybe we could have like the top of the lake be relatively clear, but then like the bottom of the lake you can't see at all, to kind of hide the creepy fish that lie beneath.
That goes hand in hand with that gradient of horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you had any feedback about how we could maybe approach murkiness, if there's maybe a better system you're thinking might be able to be put into place.
Yeah. I think like horror as a genre is so rich, and there's like so many different kinds of horror that you could tap into. So an idea I was thinking about is, I don't know how deep you guys plan to have this hole or the kind of length of experience you want, but if you want it to be sort of a longer experience, and so you're getting deeper and deeper down to this hole, you could be moving down genres of horror. Like there could be zombie fish, there could be skeleton fish, there could be, you know, cult fish. And those can be all visually different. It could be basically, going from like Breath of the Wild zones, for example,
Yes.
where they're all dark and scary, but they're different darks and scary. There's sort of green scary places, purple scary places, and so you don't have to just get darker. You can get gloomier, you can get slimier as you go down.
That is a sick idea.
Yeah, there's a lot to be done with color in terms of horror. I think a lot of people tend to stick to like sort of washed out colors, and I think one of the things we want to end up doing is having a lot of color within horror, because I think that's like a very unique sort of way of approaching it, and that sort of goes hand in hand with what you were saying.
Yeah. And then obviously you might be noticing, that we don't have any sound, but we are planning on fully implementing that. But I think that's about
it. Thank you so much for being here.
We really appreciate your feedback.
Yeah, great feedback. So wonderful. And we want to introduce Bifrost, who's going to be up next.
Yep.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
If you are hearing this, it means you have survived intensive augmentation, and are the Asgard Initiative's chosen candidate for being the most qualified expendable individual for the upcoming initiative. You are a Valkyrie, Valkyrie 4. As a Valkyrie, your primary mission is to ensure the order of the realms. This is accomplished by maintaining the monoliths. Fortunately, the Asgard Initiative has developed a solution, the Bifrost. The Bifrost is used to create one-way doors called rifts. For your understanding, hole open, energy out. Energy change based on hole. However, a more permanent door can be opened between realms. Bridges do not channel any energy, instead allowing complete traversal into the opposing realm both physically and mentally. Valkyries are responsible for maintaining order throughout the 9 realms. Evidently, this is no simple task. You work for the Asgard Initiative as a deployable, peace-bearing representative to any uncooperative realm, and are assigned to resolve issues presented to the Asgard Initiative by exterminating all threats to the safety of the 9 realms. The burden of preventing total universal collapse rests on you. The Asgard Initiative also reminds me to remind you that I am not physically present in your body, and that should you expire, I will still be alright.
Alright, welcome to Bifrost, everyone. Just to get started, we'll get some introductions out of the way. So, I'm right here.
Hi everyone, my name is Madison Hosdick. I'm the UI UX designer and marketing manager.
I am Adam True, and I'm one of the level designers.
And I'm Dylan Anderson. I'm one half of our ability design team. And then we've got Carly, who's our industry professional. She's actually a producer over at Red Games Co. Carly, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hey guys. I'm a producer with Red. I work with Chandler, who actually did one of the other games just a little while ago. I produce a couple of different titles for the company, but mainly we focus on like kid-friendly mobile spaces. So definitely not the kind of intense platformer we're looking at here, but
We still appreciate all the feedback you got. But yeah, and then we also got Roger that's hanging out in the corner. Hi, Roger.
Just here to help out. Just here to help.
Thanks for coming.
So
Roger.
yeah,
I'm here too.
Oh yeah, I didn't see you. Sorry, Fernando. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We are so grateful for you being here. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. But yeah, so getting into it, Bifrost brought to you by Valkyrie 27. That's our studio name. But so Bifrost is a fast-paced, multi-dimensional platformer where you race through with Norse and sci-fi themes. Sorry, race through the different dimensions using the Bifrost, a device capable of opening rifts and bridges to other dimensions. Master unique effects of these abilities to battle and platform your way through the 9 realms. But anyways, let's get into some gameplay now.
Yeah.
So we got our wonderful music that you might have heard in our tutorial going on right now, or not our tutorial, our trailer. But yeah, we can just get into it now.
Our game will be played by Tyler Bamford as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry, Tyler.
And are the Asgard Initiative's chosen candidate for being the most qualified expendable individual for the upcoming initiative.
Okay, sorry. We have a little bit of voice acting in the game, so I didn't want to talk over it. But yeah, so that's actually Heimdall, our companion AI that's talking right now. And yeah, so Bifrost, basically this first area is what we call the break room. It is where all of our Valkyries that you play as a Valkyrie, specifically Valkyrie 4. Valkyries are in charge of basically keeping the realms stable. something is going on, something's destabilizing the realms, we have to go in and try and fix things. This is just the area that you're using to kind of get used to your cybernetic enhancements that you have. So you can jump around like this, that kind of fun stuff.
You guys have been working on this for 8 weeks, right?
Sounds about
approximately.
Yeah, it's been a little bit more than that. It's been our first semester. But yeah, right there at the beginning.
Visually and like your audio, your voice acting, and the sound effects and music you guys already have in there is really polished. Like visually, this looks really great for being just a few weeks in like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that. But yeah, so at the beginning right there, in those like glass boxes, you can actually see some of our rift abilities that we mentioned. Those are like portals that we can open that bring the effects of other realms into the space that you're in. They'll be what you're using throughout the levels to deal with enemies and like maybe give yourself some more movement options other than like our little dash that we have. This is a bridge, so the bridge lets you cross into other dimensions or realms where like the geometry might be different. In this tutorial, it's really just the geometry. We wanted to get the players used to like switching back and forth. Whenever you see these like leaves on the ground and the rainbow gradient around the edges, that means you can use one of the bridges to switch into the other dimension. These like moving rainbow textures are just showing you what might be different in the other dimension that you need to be aware of. Yeah, you can kind of see through and have a little sneak peek.
Yeah. Yeah, it adds some fun platforming for sure. What are your thoughts about that, Carly?
This strikes very similar to like Portal problem solving. I think mechanically this is really ambitious because you said there's 9 realms, right? So there's 9 potential power-ups that you're pulling from.
Yes. Right now we have 6, and we're like leaving it at 6, so we don't have any more scope creep. Later on, we'll actually show you our gym that has those other abilities that we've already made. But yeah, you mentioned Portal. Portal's actually one of our like inspirations, as well as like the plasmids from the BioShock series, as for like our ability inspiration. And then there's one specific level in what's it called? Titanfall 2 called Effect and Cause. Yeah. That's basically got this like switching back and forth between the dimensions. In that game, I think it's times. But yeah, those are our big inspirations for our game.
Yeah, I think already like mechanic wise movement looks like it feels really good. The problem solving and puzzles like pulling into puzzle solving when you start pulling from alternate realms and how that could potentially like stack if there's multiple power-ups that you're pulling to solve a puzzle, that definitely seems like there's a lot of room for you to be able to play. I will say, I think like lore-wise, there's a lot of implied storytelling here in your narration, and obviously you've tied it to Norse mythology in a way that opens a lot of possible connections for an audience. Portal does that too, where you have that kind of like narrative building. I'd be cautious of leaning too heavy on your voiceover to tell you that story, though. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, actually, because you bring that up right here in the hub, we're planning on implementing some narrative Easter eggs and things like that, where this is kind of the slow central area where the player will be able to find more narrative versus the levels themselves, which will be more focused on kind of speed going through them, yeah.
Yeah, this is actually our first like main level. This is Muspelheim, the Realm of Fire. And right in front of us, we can actually go in and pick up our first ability, which is the Fire Rift. And it updated our little UI over in the bottom left. And it lets you fire this giant fireball that lets you crash through walls. And then right through here, you can actually shoot it at enemies and get rid of them. And then here's our wonderful gauntlet of enemies that we lovingly call ankle biters. There's a lot of them here. We've been kind of messing around with enemy density and trying to figure out how much is too much and like stuff like that. So right now, it's a little too much. It's a little overwhelming. And you might have noticed it a little bit. There's kind of like a glass shatter effect. If you get hit by those enemies, it reduces your time. That's our health mechanic in this game. And so if that timer in the bottom right reaches 0, then your level is restarted. But anyways, you want to comment on that or anything, Carly?
So you're speed running it essentially.
Yeah, like we really want this game to feel like you can go fast, and like we hope that speedrunners can have a whole lot of fun in it. But we want everybody to be able to play our game.
Yeah, and we're also tying that in. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that enemy density piece that you just mentioned, like, there's nowhere for you to put your feet, which does keep you moving. So I do think that's kind of an interesting balance you guys have already struck of, you know, you can't really settle too much in that little area.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and then we, with the narrative itself, we're talking about like the realms destabilizing, so that's why you have limited time to get through it and solve that issue.
And look, you can see Tyler on the stream. But yeah, so
that is a really clever narrative tie-in. That like the realm destabilizing, so you have to move quick. I think that's a really great example of places where you can tie the storytelling to the mechanic. And yeah, that's a really great decision.
Yeah, and like we're trying. If you'll notice that the enemies that are in the different realms, they like correspond to whatever the connected realm is. So the ice enemies were in the fire realm, and the fire enemies were in the ice realm. So we're in Jotunheim right now. That's all icy and pretty and stuff, with giant axes. And you'll see that we had fire enemies, and now the ice enemies are back. Some of our shaders are being a little weird, and so our ice enemies are a little bit more purple than we like them. But we're working on that. We'll figure it out. But anyways, getting to the end here, there's just one more little portal that we got to jump through, one more bridge, and we'll get here, jump down on these awesome giant weapons and shields and stuff. And then that's the end of our level. That's the ending monolith. But yeah, so that was like a slow run through of everything. But to kind of give you the feel of what we want people to do, we're gonna try and like speed run it for you. Tyler's gonna do his best at going as fast as possible. But yeah, so if you have any questions, that kind of stuff, Carly, for us, like feel free.
Yeah, so if this is where you guys are already at, kind of halfway through, what's next on your priority list? Like visually, it seems like you've already found a really solid style. You've got some great audio in here. Your level design seems really solid and like definitely emphasizes that wanting to keep moving and going fast. What's kind of next on your priority list?
So right now we only have like the tutorial level and this level that's like the fire and ice realms. We have our 4 other abilities that we'll show off after Tyler does this this little showcase part. And our next things are getting levels made for those abilities, because we want each level will correspond to one ability. Right now we have a stone ability for Svartalfheim, the realm of like dwarves and like stone, and then we have a cyclone ability that will also be like the corresponding one for that, which I believe is for Alfheim. But yeah, so that is like our next to-do list, and then we have like another pair of realms that we got to do.
Yeah, now Tyler's in our gymnasium where we just store all of our assets and use it for testing movement and all those things.
So you might see some familiar geometry, like that giant shield over there and the axe and the trees that were in the break room, all that fun stuff.
Are you guys aiming to tell kind of a big story by the end of the game, like, or is this just kind of a collection of speedrun challenges?
We have a giant overarching story that one of our devs is like kind of working on, where like there's a reason why the realms are destabilizing, and so we have to go in and fix them because we're an agent from the Asgard Initiative that's tasked with kind of keeping things under wrap. We have some fun little like stuff that we've just kind of been sitting on and having fun with writing and collaborating on. So yeah, there's an overarching story. It's just told through like these fast-paced missions.
And here you'll see the stone rift that places a stone in the ground, which can launch you forward, which can really help with momentum and speedrunning.
It's really fun to just kind of launch yourself around this gym, just for like playtesting purposes. And then the cyclone
I gotta tell you, that's a clever power to associate with like a rock, like a stone platform. Like you'd think that wouldn't lend itself to something that speeds you up like that, but it's a really clever way to integrate it. And also, yeah, it definitely makes you move quickly and keep your momentum up.
Yeah, I love Avatar: The Last Airbender, and so that was like earthbending. That was the inspiration behind that ability, and I'm like, I want this kind of thing. That was one of my abilities that I helped with and kind of led. And then that right now is the Death Rift, and then also the Light Rift. So Light Rift lets you kind of fling enemies around, and you can actually combo it with the Death Rift that we have, and the Death Rift will teleport you to an enemy that you're targeted at and kill that enemy. So yeah, lots of like comboing potential that we want to be interlacing into our game.
Yeah, and the Death Rift will come from Helheim, and the Light Rift will come from Alfheim. So
yeah, that's what it was.
Mhm.
But yeah, and we just got some more enemies scattered around here, all that fun stuff. But yeah, I guess in terms of like, do you think we should add more moving abilities? Like right now, we don't have a whole lot of abilities tied to directly movement. We have like the Death Rift and our Stone Rift that are really like movement focused, but we've been talking about maybe adding some moving capabilities to like the Cyclone Rift. Like maybe that launches you straight up in the air, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of problem that you have to solve, because you have some really cool combat abilities already, but you really aren't meant to take time out of your run to do combat. In fact, it's kind of a punishing thing if you take damage, essentially, because it cuts your time.
Yeah.
So I do think that's a little counterintuitive to a player, to like, you're not going to set up all these cool combos if it means that you're going to lose time doing it.
We should mention that when you do kill enemies, it'll reset your dash ability. Therefore, you can continue to move faster. So there is some benefit to
Yes, we've got a little bit of incentivization. We've talked about like maybe reducing like cooldowns on our abilities, and so that makes you want to kill the enemies and like keep firing your abilities. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the balance that you're going to have to strike is like, how quickly can I set up picking somebody up, fleeing it, throwing them into a Death Rift? Can I do it while I'm dashing? Can I do it while I'm mid-jump? Like, is that something that I can kind of shoot out of my peripheral and do behind me, so I get the bonus when I hit the ground and keep running? I think anything that kind of requires you to set up and plan how you're going to take out enemies, or how you're going to, get through an area, and it's not just kind of like Mirror's Edge, where you just kind of have to keep going and then you problem solve in the air. I think that'll help emphasize that, like, get to the end as opposed to stop and do combat.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sweet. Kind of like the run and gun type thing. But anyways, thank you so much, Carly. You were so great and helpful.
Thank you, Carly.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. We're going to get out of here and let 9 Lives come in and show off what they have. Thank you all,
awesome
everybody.
Work, guys.
Yep, thank you. See ya.
Oh, great. Hi, we are Connor. I'm Connor Blunt, producer on 9 Lives, and
I'm Michael Dougal. I'm one of the engineers on 9 Lives.
You may be asking, what is 9 Lives? 9 Lives is a multiplayer party shooter where you're playing as cats with water guns trying to soak your friends. And here with us today is the lovely, brilliant Roger, our amazing professor from Capstone. You want to give us a bit of a spiel?
I am your substitute professional today. We had a little bit of a scheduling problem, but I could not be more excited than to talk about 9 Lives with you. I am one of the co-founders of EAE and the teacher of this class with Fernando, and this is an exciting game that we that we were skeptical about and that you proved us wrong on.
That's our goal. But yeah, so we do have multiplayer working. I believe we can start that now. Yep.
Yeah, so we have one of our other engineers, Jackson, on the other side playing the game. So he's going to give us kind of a rundown here of how things are working. We are currently connected to Epic Online Services, so we're running our matchmaking through their services that they provide for that. Here you can see Jackson has just started hosting a game, and we have a couple of our other engineers that will be joining him here shortly.
So
you'll see them start to pop into the world there.
There's Huey and Brendan.
And this was like our big technical hurdle, just like getting us to this point, trying to get people all connected here. There's no port forwarding or IP addresses or anything involved. It's just a very streamlined process of you get into the game, you get this server browser, and then you click join on the game you want, and it just puts you in here. So now you can start to see them in the world. They've got all their player models. They'll start to pick up some of the guns that we've made. So you can see that we have 3 different types of guns to start off with. We've got a sniper rifle, a rifle that Jackson just picked up and will be showing off, and then a sort of water grenade launcher that you'll also be able to see here.
Yeah.
What's your max player count for this game?
Currently, this is free-for-all maps with 8 players on it, so 8 players max for this map. We're hoping to make a 3v3, so 6-person map, and potentially a 5v5, but currently looking at just the 3v3 to be complete.
Awesome. And what are they shooting at each other?
Those would be water balls currently. They're balls of water because cats hate water. And if someone's going to be an elite sniper and get Jackson wet, we can show off the drying station.
Yeah,
maybe.
So the premise of the game is that you as a cat have 9 lives, and every time that your cat gets soaked, they lose 1 life. And then instead of your typical multiplayer, you just respawn back at your base. In this game, you actually have to go and find one of these drying stations, which gets your health back. And then once you're dried off, then you can go and continue to play. Every time that you get soaked, you lose 1 of those lives, and then that's how you're eliminated from the match.
Remind me, are you safe in the drying zone, or can people sort of shoot you while you're there?
You can totally be shot in the drying zones currently. The idea is that there's multiple. Currently on this map, there's 4. The idea is that they're spread out enough so that you cannot be camped all the time. Unfortunately, though, it seems like Huey and Brendan like attacking Jackson a lot because he's on stream, so stream sniping's happening. Oops.
Yeah, that's kind of something we've gone back and forth on. I mean, there's obvious benefits to having it be a safe space, but it can also be a little bit more exciting if you have to be avoiding other players while you're there as well. So it's still open to discussion.
How are you going to answer that question? How are you going to know which way to go?
The current plan is just, play test it out, see what feels good.
Yeah.
I think that if people are playing the game and it starts to be annoying that people are camping these stations, or that's just not working for different maps, or things in practice, then that's something you got to take into account too.
Yeah, we just had our first. Sorry, we just had our first multiplayer test this week, so that's definitely a question for probably next semester when we start testing more of this out. Get a bit more in. We've been working a bit with the multiplayer on just making sure the movement feels good. And the gun mechanics, making sure the guns all function correctly, because replication was a huge issue in the bullets, if I remember correctly, from Jackson. So yeah, but it seems like all the replication on the bullets is working fine, so.
Yeah, and that's kind of been one of our biggest technical challenges, is just making all the multiplayer aspects of this work. Most of our team, up until this point, has only done single-player games, and so this whole concept of having, a server and a client and keeping everybody in sync and all of these things are new, and we haven't developed for them before. So we have to spend a lot of time on these, other aspects of making this kind of a game.
It's ambitious for sure, right? It's one of the things we tried to warn you off on, and then you proved us wrong. You pulled off multiplayer in record time. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hey, talk to me about your level design. What is this going to be when it's all dressed up?
Yeah, so currently right now we have a white boxed and slightly colored out western level. As you can see, Jackson just hopped up onto one of the side areas. The side areas are meant to be a hotel with that big up top part with a jailhouse and a general store to the side.
It's currently mirrored, so it's same on each side. And then in the center is a big saloon with little chairs around, so you could sit around, or you could shoot water guns at each other.
Oh,
that's the
awesome.
current idea.
That's awesome.
And
Are you
then,
going to do more than one map or just the one map?
We're gonna try and do more than one map. We have another map that's planned for that 5v5 mode if we have enough time to get to it, which is planned to be a sort of spaceship environment. Since this is just kind of like a party casual game, we wanted to have these environments that just felt, cartoony and fun, and may not be like super realistic, but just kind of like fun spaces to explore and play in.
Actually,
Are you going to cat theme it? Like, is it going to be like in your saloon? Is it going to be milk instead of beer? Or on your spaceship, is it going to be powered by catnip? Or are they just going to be kind of traditional?
I think on that spaceship question, that's a great question. What would you think of a cat spaceship? Like, what should be in there? Because that's still under development.
Mouse-powered reactors. The possibilities are endless.
Mouse powered. It sounds very eco-friendly. I like that.
Like on a wheel? Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. But I think for this map, set dressing it, definitely probably switching out maybe the milk for beer, or whiskey probably. Beer, milk sounds fantastic. Maybe some catnip around.
Yeah, in general, it's a great idea. I mean, during some of our playtests, we've had a lot of suggestions like that, like how can we make this look like it's an actual cat's playground. There's another level that we were exploring when we were looking at doing single player modes, just with like AI running around. And we had a great suggestion during one of the playtests that was like, we had this this pole that was going up through the level, and you could use our wall climbing ability to go up it. And one of the players suggested that looks exactly like one of those cat scratching posts. And I think it's a great idea to try and incorporate that into some of our art.
Oh, that's great. Like, that kind of theming really sells it. Talk to me a bit how you're going to do your balancing. Like, how do you know a weapon shoots fast enough, or how do you determine the range, those kinds of things?
Currently, Jackson's the rifle, so we're going to see it the most. But with the snipe, we've seen from playtest feedback that the sniper feels the best because it shoots the straightest, fastest, feels the most like a real gun. And then grenade launcher and rifle are kind of tied right now. So probably working on making those feel a bit better. The grenade launcher is a bit hard to use because of its bouncy nature. It's a bit unpredictable, but that's what makes it a lot of fun in my opinion. But yeah. So
yeah, I'm a fan of indirect fire weapons too. Like, I love lobbing something and get big splash damage.
Yeah, and the overarching theme here is we want it to be kept casual. It's not being built to be a competitive game. It's just something that's for fun. So, I mean, with our characters, for example, you can kind of see that the art style here makes the head really big. So in a traditional first-person shooter, typically when you hit the head, it deals more damage. It's a headshot. And in our game, that would be a little bit overpowered because the head is like the easiest thing to hit. So in ours, it's going to kind of be just damage anywhere on the body is the same, and it's just you're just trying to hit the other person, just in that same vein of like we want to keep it casual and not like extremely competitive. So there will be balancing. It just won't be like the main focus of the design.
Yeah. You have a little bit more room to play with those weapons, huh?
Yeah, and we want to make them fun to use. So that's like why we're not making multiple kinds of rifles. We're making like a rifle and a grenade launcher and a sniper that are like very different from each other's because they're fun to play in different styles.
It's really smart. How are you going to differentiate them graphically? Like, are they going to have different projectiles, or are the weapons going to look different?
So yeah, graphically right now, we do have currently modeled out and textured our 3 different guns. Currently not in the build though because time constraints. So they will be visually different in the final build. There was a theory that we might go with changing the VFX a bit, specifically with the grenade launcher maybe being water balloons. That may or may not happen. We'll see next semester, but I think that might help. What are your thoughts on different VFX for the guns?
I tell you what, if you think you can pull it off, it's great. The other professor of the class, he's the scope cop. He might come for you, but he's not here right now, so I say go for it.
Yes. And as it stands right now, I mean, the projectiles themselves are a little bit different from gun to gun. I mean, you'll see here as the player that we have on screen right now is shooting off the grenade launcher. So as he holds down his mouse button or his fire button, it makes the projectile bigger the longer he holds it. So you'll start to see like bigger or smaller coming out of that depending on how much he's charged it up, essentially. The rifle projectiles travel slower and have more drop than the sniper rifle projectiles, which I believe are also a little bit smaller. So there's a little bit of differentiation between the projectiles. We'll have different models for the different guns. But like you're saying, it could be very cool to make even more visual distinctions between all three.
Yeah, I think you'll figure that out. Are the environments going to be dynamic or are they going to be static? So, like, can you close a door to not let someone know where you went, or is it all going to be kind of rigid and static?
Yeah, in the interest of scope, like we were just talking about, the environments are currently just planned to be static. I think it would be really fun to have something that was dynamic, but kind of a reach goal at this point.
You're like A+ students managing your own scope. It's impressive.
Trying to be realistic about it.
You say that, but you let us do a multiplayer game. This
You
is a
know
lot of
what?
scope
I
to deal
didn't say-
with.
Being your professor and being a good professor are two very different things. But I tell you, this is so much work for the few number of sprints that you had. Because this is like 8 weeks of work, right? 9 weeks, maybe?
Around there. 8, 9-ish? Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere in there?
Sure.
Yeah, it is a remarkable amount of game for that amount of time. What are you most proud of?
I think just getting it working and
Yeah, like the playtest Tuesday was just amazing to see, like our sister studio having so much fun trying out and breaking everything as you do on playtests. But it made me really enjoy working on the game with all these guys.
Also, other people have played it and enjoyed it. That's like the best thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were actually really surprised at how much they enjoyed it because we don't have, the full game cycle and loop in here yet. But they were just having fun playing with their friends, and that's really what we're after, is just let them have fun. So.
Oh, that's
awesome.
wonderful. I love it. Is it controller or mouse and keyboard?
Currently mouse and keyboard, possibly controller support in the future.
Yeah.
But it looks like we're close to time, so thank you so much, Roger, for giving us comments on our game.
It was an honor to be here, and what a great looking game. I'm excited to play it.
Thanks.
Appreciate that.
And then I believe we're going to break, but up next will be C12 with their graduate games. So stay tuned for that.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to our final section for EAE Play. You may have seen me a couple of hours ago. I'm Fernando. I'm one of the faculty here, and I'm here with Corinne.
Hi, everybody.
And we're going to be presenting the games for the Advanced Game Studio class. These are the games created by our master students in our cohort 12, and we're super excited to talk about them. So, Corinne, let's go ahead and give them a quick overview of what they'll be looking at.
So this class is spans 2 semesters, and so what you're about to see is what we like to call feature complete, which is relative. So it's not polished. They really have a lot of what they'll be polishing in the spring, but we are super excited to have you all see where they're at, because that's why we do EAE Play, is we want play testers. This is actually such a fundamental part of game development that it's critical for us to have a lot of play testing. And so all of the teams will have, they'll talk about this, but they'll have a way for you to follow the games that you're interested in. Hopefully you're interested in all 5 of them. Yeah. And you'll be able to sign up, and they'll send you information when their public playtesting is available.
Right, so please do keep an eye out for any links that we show today, links to social media, links to playtesting forums, and without further ado, let's just go ahead and get things started.
Yep, we're excited. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, we're Combo Bombo. I'm Ben.
Hey.
A producer for the team. Hi, Bart.
Hey.
So, yeah, I suppose I've done a lot of talking for this game. To my right, here's Zoyoung, also a producer. He's came in shortly after our prototype. He's done a lot of great organization and other important production tasks that have helped us a lot. To my left, we've got Ming Yuan, who has done tons of design, engineering, and even some pipeline management. Usually we try to make the burden lighter on him by telling the public about our game, but this time we thought it would be nice for people to hear from him. And we have
Awesome.
our panelist, Bart, from High Moon Studios, under Activision, and they've I hear helped make Destiny and Call of Duty. They're really fantastic games. Would you like to tell us more about yourself, Bart?
Hey, very nice to meet you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, my name is Bart. I'm working at High Moon Studios, as you said. Yeah, I'm working on Call of Duty. Before that, I worked on a bunch of well-known titles like Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Assassin's Creed Origins, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and Star Wars Jedi Survivor that was just announced like last day. I also worked on a bunch of smaller titles in my past. I'm originally from Poland, and I worked for like 10 years in my home country working on first-person shooters. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Mostly what I'm working on is kind of connection of gameplay, animation, and physics. But probably throughout my life, I probably touched every aspect of game development in this way or another.
Perfect.
So yeah, that's pretty much me.
Well, I hope you like the change of scenario, the change of scenery with our beach game. Hearing, hearing you're from Poland. So we have Zo-Young here, who will tell you a little bit about the things you're seeing on the screen with our game.
So since you can see, our original idea is to make a party game where a player can pick up different items and combine them to different weapons. So most of them are the objects from our normal life, and we can combine it to different and stylized and different weapons with different effect. And this is an online multiplayer game, and player will be separated into 2 teams, and they will. You can see there's a balloon in the center of the level, and it is the main objective of the player. They can use different weapon to blow up the balloon, but actually there will be a better weapon and worse weapon. So they need to try their best to find the right combinations. That is what we want player to do. And for the weapon effect, different weapons have different effects, like the burning effect and knockback and something else. So we want to make it casual. So in our previous advertising, we said that the killing will not be our game's main objective, but after that, we found that player they are interesting. They are excited to kill each other, but we still want to make it a casual game. So we are going to eliminate the cost of death and the reward of killing. What? So this is not our game. This is the next game
AJ,
they will present.
Thank you.
Okay.
Juja,
So
also a great game. Yeah.
Yes.
We'll tell you
So
all
the
about
main
it at
the main objective of this mode is to inflate this balloon or to break it.
They can blow up the balloon and they will earn I have write a rule about our game. Is that you pick up can you see that? You pick up different weapons and you can fight with each other, and once you kill a player you can earn 5 points, and you blow up the balloon you can earn 13 points. So this is the current main objective of our game, but we called the balloon a mini game in the single game. So maybe there will be more mini game and to feed the different effects of our different weapons.
Another minigame, for instance, could be picking up a bucket and treating it like a flag and capture the flag, bringing it to a secure location. And we're considering doing away with rewarding players for killing other players with points, just so that the minigame is emphasized a little more than the slaughter, the combat.
So theoretically, all players are against each other. There are no squads or some cooperative.
Fortunately, on the screen we can see 3 people of the same color. Right now we have the game set up so that we can have 2 teams, and at the end of the game you'll see how well your team did, and from that UI that briefly showed up on the screen. And the UI is a little more new of the feature that's getting play tested, and so like I said, one way that we can iterate on it is doing away with showing people the points rewarded, the points given for kills and things like that.
I think what's probably just confusing for me right now is like this balloon is feels like it's like the main center of the map and it's like the main goal, but actually you can also earn points in some other way. For doing some other stuff.
It's just some growing pains, frankly. Like we're testing out this mini game, but to get the game functional, we started out with the base mechanics of combat. So in this rougher stage of the project, you can't see our full vision for the game, but hopefully you can see some potential.
We plan to add more minigames to fit more weapons, and player need to kill each other to get the weapons they want. But I think in our future plan, killing people will not earn points. They just it's a way to get new weapons they want. Yeah.
And you said something. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
You said something about crafting weapons from other pieces of environment you can pick up. Yeah, am I correct?
Yeah, and so for this mini game right now, the weapon combination that works best is the lighter with the hair dryer to make the flamethrower, because it quickly pops up, blows up the balloon, and also does some area damage. But for other mini games, we're going to shoot for emphasizing other combinations for our variety pillar. We have
and
a
how
variety.
do you?
Go ahead.
Yeah, how do you do it? Like in terms of crafting, you find them somewhere in the map, and how do you do specifically a combination of those elements?
Good question.
I can answer questions. So, like,
Excellent.
if you, so like in the first beginning, in the very beginning, those weapons is gonna separate at the map. So you can just gather them, and if you pick up that weapon, and you also can drop it. If someone kills you, and that weapon is gonna drop off. So you can just if you think that guy has some weapon that you like, you can just kill him and get that weapon.
You said it like a cold killer.
Yes, but it's not a killing game. But yeah, I just want to say that killing is a way that you can gather the weapon. Yeah, but the main objective is still get the bomb, get the balloon. Yeah, so if normally you think about if you use the hairdryer, use your hairdryer to attack the balloon, they can expand like quicker. So that's like normal thoughts. But right now, other weapons still can do the same thing, but it's just not the same effect. So like the balloon still gonna expand if you use flamethrower to attack it, but if you use like hairdryer, it's gonna be like expand quicker. So.
So the combination of two elements is automatic, or you need to do something to combine two elements to have a special weapon?
Good question. There's some UI that pops up when you walk over an item that lets you press Q or E to pick it up in one of those sockets for the hands. When you have both hands filled up, then it combines into one new weapon asset.
Yeah, probably I would know it when I would play. It was just probably confusing just to learn about it from this video.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, but we did think that we should optimize the operations of picking weapons and to combine it. But currently we just have the left hand pick and right hand pick, and if you have different weapons in your two hands, then it will automatically combine into one. Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Like, people will just, walk over the items that they want, and it's going to be automatically combined. But how do you drop, let's say, the weapon, the piece that you don't want? Is it possible?
Do we have plans?
It's the same button.
It's the
same button with pickup.
Yeah. So you can use you use Q to pick up a weapon at your left hand, and you can use Q to drop it.
In my opinion, it's a newer feature because I
already have that feature.
I know.
What I do, man.
I need to do more
finish it last
playtesting part.
Okay, awesome. Sounds great. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, like what I see so far, it's looking like what I like is that the art direction is kind of consistent.
Thank you.
So you keep this kind of cartoonish style. So it feels like it's not random. There was some thinking process behind it, and you are keeping it consistent, which is important for overall kind of perception that the game feels much more consistent, and the overall tone of the game is as well kind of matching the art direction, I would say.
Thank you.
Which is also, I think, important because it has impact on overall perception of the game. Yeah. And you have also quite a lot of special effects, which is really nice because it's like a really cool final touch on all those things. I'm not a big fan of those feet sliding on the ground. Like feet movement doesn't match at all the speed you are moving around, but it's maybe because I work a lot with animations, so this kind of things like bother me.
That's excellent
Because
feedback.
I mean you move very fast, but your legs are moving kind of very slow, so you kind of slide on the ground, and you can like see it a lot. But you know, you have very small characters with kind of short legs, and they move extremely fast in comparison to their body height,
Well, one of
body
the
size. So that would be probably hard to change, I guess. I mean, you can try, but
when we showed the game to Rockstar, which was awesome, by the way. Thank you, Rockstar. They recommended that we mature our characters a little bit, so age them up. So if we make the models a little taller, maybe the animation of sliding will, and if we slow them down a little, maybe.
Yeah.
The animation
Although
will be better.
I wouldn't sacrifice gameplay like just for visual, kind of improvements in this area, because like movement speed is one of the most important things that affect the way people play and the way people perceive gameplay and overall what they can do. So just to match a bit better with feet, I wouldn't sacrifice the gameplay itself. I would rather try to find some solution on the visual side to match the gameplay you want. And
rather than slowing down the characters.
Yes, definitely.
So during our play test, we found that some weapons are too powerful. So maybe we will change the player's walk speed by the weapon they hold. So maybe we need to remake the animation to let the animation feed the player's speed, because in the future the player's speed can change. So we will consider it.
Yeah, because at a very early stage we use motion capture to mocap those character movements, but after we import those animation into the real character, we find out that it's because our character is not like real human. It's not like a real human, but we use human to mocap those animation feel like really strange. So we change it to make all the animation by ourselves. So right now the animation looks like natural, but yeah, like you said, the movements of the foot of the feet is not like that accuracy. So probably we're gonna change the moving speed, or we change the animation to like a little bit to fit the yes.
Although that's probably also a good idea to kind of scale the movement speed with your weapons, if this is this is giving really good gameplay variety and good gameplay feeling. That's awesome. Otherwise you may think about, I don't know, just having bigger characters with longer legs so they can kind of have bigger stride, a longer stride. So just better matching with animation rate, with playing like the rate of your animation playback with the actual physical movement, how fast they move, and also like strafing and going back. I think it's also kind of weird. I mean, it's okay for the whole character, but the legs are kind of weird as well. But I think it should go in a way that you set up gameplay and then you try to match visuals for that, especially in this kind of multiplayer game where the feeling of movement is really important.
Bart, thanks.
I guess we need to finish,
Yeah,
the time is up.
Yeah, we're iterating on animation right now, so it's really
thanks for your feedback.
Yeah, and we are short on time now, so thanks so much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure talking to you. Now I'd like to give a quick introduction of the next game. Which
You've already seen their trailers in the video. That is Rudra.
Rudra, A Tale of Time. They're all over the place with time, even in our presentation. Just a joke. and I'm good friends with the people you'll be seeing. We got McCain, who's a producer and narrative designer. We've got Barrage, who's a producer. And they'll be talking to Matthew Moore from Shell. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Namaste and welcome everyone. I'm Biraj Varsani, the producer on Rudra, and with me we have McCain Searle, the narrative designer on Rudra. Rudra is an ancient epic action RPG where you use different abilities and combos and unlock chakras and battle Rakshasas to bring balance to the universe.
With us here today, we have our guest, Matthew Moore, senior designer at Shell Games. Matthew, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Matthew. Thank you for letting me join and watch this, particularly from my cave of darkness where the power is out at my house. So I'm a game designer at Shell Games. I have been a content designer, a systems designer, a narrative designer, many kinds of designer, producer. I did copy editing while I was at ArenaNet. My journey has been long and varied, and has brought me here to you today. But yeah, I'm excited to see what you've got.
Awesome. So based on our trailer, do you have any initial questions for us?
I do want to make sure that I understand that like the majority of it is a third-person action game. Like there was a moment where the camera was flying in over what I assumed were like Battlefield.
Yes.
The majority of the game is third-person action. Yes.
Yes, that was just like a pan shot in the trailer.
Just getting that cinematography in.
Great. Okay, cool. And did you follow this one character the entire time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Cool. Well, yeah. No, I'm just interested to hear like what is the journey that you expect the player to go on?
So, as you play as Rudra, you'll be traversing through the different ages of the world known to Hinduism specifically. Like everything in our game, we've based it off of Indian culture, history, and Hinduism. So, you'll be going through the first Yug, or age of the world, and then traveling through time, defeating the Rakshasa that are trying to kind of corrupt that timeline.
Okay. And is the growth of the character tied to that journey, like in very explicit ways?
Yeah, so the waterfall in our game, as you kind of saw in the trailer, we're actually tying the water into mantras, and our entire progression is actually based on the chakra flow of the body. And so as you kind of do the first challenge and overcome that, you will go through the root chakra, going all the way to the crown chakra. So as you progress through the game, you will be actually becoming more empowered and discover your inner strength.
I love it. It's always cool when you can tie something, thematic to something gameplay in a really concrete way for players. Can you talk more about the individual chakras? Like, do they unlock something specific, or are they simply like power leveling?
Yeah, so with that, our chakras unlock a mantra, right? Just like in Hinduism itself. And so that mantra, for example, is Ram for the root chakra. And so in our game, our root chakra ability is a mantra that will allow you to root enemies in place. It's this big spherical thing that will just stop enemy movement and just kind of enable combat and kind of be used as a utility feature.
Awesome. Have you planned out that you can preview for us?
Yeah, so in our current combat, we should have like this sphere that goes over enemies and stops them. That is supposed to be our mantra ability that's supposed to be disabling enemies right now.
Oh, I meant, can you preview for me other abilities that you gain tied to the chakras?
Right now, we're still in that phase of like attaching the abilities to the certain specific type of chakra, and that also winds up in our interactables, right? Like our encounters. So we want to give it like a narrative splash so that it all makes sense.
Okay. Are they specifically combat abilities, or I think you just said? It sounded like you just said you would be able to use them in the content, by which I think you mean like environmental content, like environmental puzzling.
Yeah, so we actually have two different types of encounters on our games, and that kind of goes into your question, which is the first encounter you do a kind of cleansing ritual to kind of just keep this flow moving, this chakra flow going. We're representing your chakra with that waterfall again. But as you continue on, these will be mostly used for combat. We're trying to use all of our mantras and those unlocks for combat, but we're also using them as story beats in the game. So we can like enable essentially storytelling and our voiceover as we play the game to really add that narrative depth that I think an action RPG needs.
And all the abilities will certainly be related to some type of combat.
Okay. All right. Combat focus is an important thing for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, this all makes sense. Talk to me a little bit about the world and the evolution of the world that you're picturing over the course of the game. Like you mentioned how it's about playing through the different timelines. But like, what is there something thematically that keeps the world together? Are there specific elements, like places of power, refuge, like?
So regarding that, we did like a lot of research, and this is all thanks to McCain, like he's our narrative designer. So we kept doing research on what happened in those stories and like what were the locations, how we've divided our whole time cycle into 4 different eras, and we like to call them yugs or yugas, and we've tried to go into in-depth research on how each yug looked like and how the people in that yug lived like, and McCain can talk more about that.
Yeah, and just with that said, in the different Yugs, there are totally different themes, and there's a decline in morality as you continue in the gameplay cycle. So essentially, like most games, it's kind of this downward spiral into darkness, and we really wanted to capture that in these different ages, and we developed a framework for our entire game from each of the different developments, like art departments, I should say. And so with our narrative framework, we tried to use that as the source for everything else, and to make sure that we had a solid framework for character development and progression, not only with the chakras, but also the ages of the world, so we can line up everything to a T. So that's why, I guess, in our current state of play, we have more of a framework rather than, like, I should say, like a full-fledged game.
Sure. Oh yeah, definitely. I think that I really want to make sure of is that, like, even in a game that is focused on combat, one of the things that really drives people to play in third-person action games is the moments in between the combat, right? It's the and this is where I go to the chapel, and this is where I go and meet the old man eating an apple on the side of the road. And so I was curious what mechanical little waypoints you have, for players to do the other stuff.
Yeah, and that's a great question. And so with those different waypoints and checkpoints, we are doing those cleansing rituals we were talking about, and we were going to put some narrative VO there to really enhance that experience. But I think you're right. We definitely, especially looking at this build, we need some more, I guess, detailed locations, kind of like this waterfall, to kind of enhance that narrative experience of you actually exploring a world, or at least being a part of a world. We definitely need that additional world building element that will allow us to be like, oh, this is the cool NPC that we discover. Oh, this might be, another devotee of Shiva. Things along those lines.
Yeah, I definitely found that it can be very helpful particularly to think in terms of, like, what are the gameplay elements that I need that can then get themed according to the incredible world building, the narrative through line that you've already built. Just looking at the games like, Zelda, Elden Ring, whatever, those little beats, those little moments when it's like, I'm not fighting right now, I'm recovering. I'm not fighting right now, I'm crafting. I'm not fighting right now, I'm doing blank. Yeah, to prepare for the main combat ahead. Flow state, right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
You gotta have that. You gotta have those peaks and valleys.
Yeah. And we kept that in mind, right? Like when we were creating just the concept of the game, of course, we wanted to go for combat. But at the same time, we wanted to give the player some meaningful tasks, not like just, oh, rescue this guy, which has no, like, connection to the whole main storyline, not like that, but we wanted to give the player some meaningful actions that are not combat, to just make them more interested in the game itself, in the world, in the theme of the game, everything.
Can you talk more about the diversity of the Asuras that you meet throughout the Yugs, or other things that you made?
So I couldn't catch that. Diversity of what?
Oh, sorry, the diversity of the Asuras that you fight, the enemies? Yeah.
Yeah, so in the whole research we did, Asuras have like a hierarchy. So the top of the top Asuras, Asuras are basically demons, and the top of the top Asuras is actually our main villain, Hiranyasima. And below them comes the Rakshasas, which is currently the brute enemy we have in the game, which is like a tanky enemy with high health, high damage, but slow. And then the other grunts that you saw are called Prates, which are even a lower tier than under the Rakshasas. And we're also planning on adding a mage character, which is kind of a Yaksha. It's called a Yaksha. It's another part of the hierarchy of the Asuras. And that's gonna be in the next sprint, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Yeah, there's always next sprint.
Yes.
I just basically want to make sure that, like, there's a diversity of things that you face in terms of their behaviors, not just simply their strength and size. Because I think that in particular, knowing the hierarchy of them is cool, but knowing that, like, the way that they behave matches those behaviors for like the type of demon that they are. You know,
Yeah.
these ones hide behind rocks. These ones stand in the middle and boast of their greatness and dare you to challenge them. These ones, you know, leap from on high. Just, I think the behavioral differences of enemies is often what conveys their personality.
Oh yeah.
Since they express themselves through combat, so
Yeah.
I hope that's something that you'll start to see more beyond just their like abilities and their stats.
Oh, for sure. We definitely have that framework in mind. But it looks like we're running short on time here. So next up we have High Rise Guardians. Please check them out. They're fantastic devs. Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Hello, everybody. We are Boat Games, and I'm Alex. And here are two engineering people on my team. And this is Yan Yi, and this is Ye Xiang. And I'm the tech artist in my team. And please let my two colleagues introduce themselves. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm Ye Xiang. I'm responsible for almost everything about the game design, and I'm also gameplay engineer. Responsible for implement gameplay mechanics.
Okay, hello everyone, I'm Yan Yi. I'm the lead engineer in this team, and I'm responsible for the gameplay frameworks and the network. Thank you.
Yes, about our game. Our game is a fast-paced anime-style games. It looks kind of like a pretty classical arena shooters, and But to stand ourselves in front of other games, we have an ability to let the player utilize themselves and think about strategy when they're using abilities. And yes, today we have a panelist with us from Unity Software, and he's a senior engineering developer. His name is Matt Suthering, and we really appreciate that we can have a professional review of our game. And yeah, Matt, can you talk about a little bit of yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hey, I'm super excited to be here.
chat with you about your game. It looks really cool. So yeah, I'm a software engineer at Unity, but weirdly, I guess maybe I don't typically work on the engine itself. A lot of my job is working with external studios to help them, understand how to use the engine, how to develop. We help them develop technology, and a lot of times, what my org specifically does is try to figure out how people are using the engine, so we kind of develop the future of tech. And so rather than us building our own games, we work with studios and we kind of try to understand how people are using it that way. In a past life, I was a graphics programmer, worked on a couple of Halo games, StarCraft. So that's me. Let's talk about your game.
Yes, as we call high-res guardians, as you can see, our character are fighting on the rooftop. That's why we call high-res guardian. We kind of want to approach a combination of anime, Japanese animes, and some sci-fi character. As you can see, the rocket launcher and sniper showing on the screen. And we actually have a little bit question about, since like you just mentioned that you work on StarCraft and Halo, and what do you think will be a good representation if I kind of want to combine these two styles? Will be a good shape?
That's a tough question. I mean, like mechanically, they're very different games.
Yes.
I don't even know how to answer that, but I would actually like to ask you a question about this, because like for me, it definitely evokes certain games, but I'm curious, like, what games inspired you to make this? Like, I am curious because it's kind of like, it's an arena shooter, but you also have brought elements from more modern shooter subgenres. So I'm curious the specific games that kind of influenced your decision in this direction.
Yes. One of our lead artist designer in our team, we got some inspiration from Sword Art Online, with Fatal Bullets. Yes. And that's kind of, we kind of have a real mashup, as you were saying. And I think that's kind of why our game stands out from other game a little bit, instead of just like a random classic shooter with some abilities. And yeah. I think we were trying, one problem we are considering as well is like many of the game in recently years are introducing cell shading, but we didn't we already have it in our shader graph, but we don't put it into our games because we actually do want to stand out. And there are plenty new games like using cell shading combined with physical-based physical-based render. Just like the newest Need for Speed, I really like the art styles. And do you think that could be a very one of the options for our game to implement, just like a physical-based with cell shading combining together?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, so I think one of the things, and it's better today, but I still think it's kind of misunderstood, is like this idea that physically based has to mean photorealistic, because it doesn't, right? I mean,
Yes.
the idea behind physically based is really just to kind of have a systems approach to how lighting works and how your materials work, so that because back in the day it was very ad hoc to kind of fine tune every material in every scenario, and it was painful. I mean, it gave a lot of creative freedom in like isolated cases, but putting a whole game together that was cohesive and not a real pain on the back end to make sure everything was together was a problem. So, I mean, I think it's absolutely possible. And I think we're starting to see a lot of games explore aspects of that. Like, I think to the question you're asking, yes, like, I think you could do it. And I think that there is a way to do it that to be unique and to stand out. Like, I realize I just said like a lot of games are starting to do that, and you're like, well, how's that unique? But I think so, because you definitely don't have to go super photorealistic.
and I think it's a really cool effect. Every time I've seen it, it's been somewhat different, but it's still, I think, been a really cool result. So it's a big task though to take on. I think getting like a really cool stylized but still physically based result. I it's hard to say if that's worthwhile because I get it's a lot to put in to get it, but like, and I'm not seeing all the failures out there, but like I said, I've seen enough games do it that it's always looked cool to me that yeah, like I'd at least explore it.
And also I remember I also were reading your experience in 343.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, also known as the Halo game, the people who made the Halos. So also I remember you are like a shader focused. So as you are seeing your game, we can only have one character. Kind of like the scenario of the Halo game is like a one big space soldier in the game. So is there like will be a suggestion for using shader to distinguish the players other than just colors?
Yeah, well, okay. So, I mean, outside of shaders, right? Like, if you're talking about different characters, I mean, it depends on what you want the different characters to represent. But like, there's a whole rabbit hole you can kind of dive into about like silhouette and how different. So, because I mean, if for a game where it's fast paced and like you've got to have real snap twitch responses, like I think readability on the field is really important. And so like if you're going to introduce different characters, I guess it depends on, do the different characters, are they just visual differences or do they represent like different abilities that you might have with you? Like I know that your game is not exactly like I'm a specific class that has abilities. It seems a little bit more mix and match, but like you know, there's a whole like aspect of design thinking about like, oh, if I'm going to have different distinct classes that have different abilities, if you want somebody to be able to like react in the moment effectively, the silhouette, before you even think about like the material and whatnot, the silhouette has to read distinct uniquely for each of those, so that like it doesn't matter if somebody's in shadow, if they're far away, like I should be able to be like, oh, I recognize that shape, and so I know like what abilities are coming at me. So that doesn't, I think maybe it doesn't exactly apply, but so before you even think about the shading, I would think about like just shape design. When it comes to your materials and shading, though, I think one thing I would say is, and I mean, I guess you gotta consider this a little bit. It seems like you know, while the map is a good size, the individual combat spaces within it are relatively close quarters, so this might not matter as much. But like, I would try to keep the materials simple, just because it's like it's kind of the same idea, but like readability, especially if you're thinking about like instant readability in general, but also at further distance. Like, if your material involves like, you know, whether they're explicitly distinct or not, like 20 like sub materials all blended together, like is that going to read in any meaningful way at a distance? Is that going to, like, it might look cool like in the character select, but if it doesn't really read well or become meaningful to the player outside of that, like you should go for it. I mean, sometimes you just do stuff because it's something that interests you and it's cool to do, but like I guess, sorry.
That's good.
It's easy to get a little lost in the weeds, though. Like, right? And I think sometimes it helps to take a step back and just ask, like, what's it going to take to get it done, and then how much payoff is it going to have? I guess, like, I think about when I was at, I don't want to get too in the weeds on this, but like, it's like when I was at Blizzard and I was talking to somebody on the Diablo team, and they're like, yeah, so when we were working on Diablo 3. You know, we were pretty late in the project, brought home like a take-home alpha and had my spouse sit down, and she spent like an hour on the banner creator before she got in the game. And then when she started playing, she turned around, she's like, wait, do we ever use my banner? And he's like, and that's when I realized that, like, no, we don't. I mean, it's still in the game, it has some use, but right, it's like a thing where it's a cool feature, but I don't even know at this point. I haven't played Diablo 3 in a while, but like, like how connected is it to what all's going on? It's a little bit of a tangent, but like, I don't know. I think it seems like for the style you're going for, even as you go physically based, like I would try to keep the materials simple, and easily readable. I think there's also an aspect of like, as you're going to make that like more characters, more variations, if you want to introduce customizations, like it's easy to want to go real deep, and you can get some cool results. But like if you're trying to manage like a ton of permutations of material content, like the simpler you keep it up front, I think you can still get pretty far with some interesting combinations, and you're gonna save yourself a lot of headache down the road.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we are about to reach the time. Thank you for your professional ideas and critical,
absolutely.
and we are really appreciate your time. And for the next game, I think we are about to introduce the Slime Night. They have a really creative game, and we are happy to watch their trailers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Slime Night is a top-down isometric action game where players must make their way through randomly generated rooms while fighting off hordes of enemies by grabbing, throwing, and punching them with their gooey, extendable arm. Players will take control of an unassuming slime that had been devoured by a giant mythological worm, along with the rest of the city that it inhabited. After inhabiting a suit of armor belonging to a recently deceased knight, you must fight your way through the beast to rescue your family and escape alive. Use your unique slime digestion powers to devour enemies and gain access to some of their abilities. Make the most of whatever you can find in order to survive long enough to reach the belly of this beast. Slime Night is currently being developed by a team of passionate minds in the University of Utah's Entertainment Arts and Engineering graduate program. The team formed around a set of core pillars to guide the ideation and design process. Although we didn't exactly know what game we wanted to make at first, we knew we wanted an experience that was mechanics-focused, featured systems that made the player feel clever, and could be replayed multiple times while still feeling fresh and unique. With these pillars established, we got to work prototyping a few ideas that the team had in order to find a set of core mechanics that we knew were fun. We intentionally avoided constraining ourselves to any one genre, and instead let the design process guide us to the most promising ideas. After 2 weeks of extensive prototyping and playtesting, we were finally able to nail down exactly what we wanted to make, and thus, Slime Night was born. While the engineers got to work putting together the core mechanics and systems of the game in Unreal, there was still a lot of concepting work to do on the art and design side. As a team, we gradually settled on a solid character design and explored the narrative hook of the game that would inform the environment art and motifs for abilities and enemies. As of today, Slime Night has officially been in development for just over 2 months. After our rapid prototyping phase was completed, we started over in order to meticulously establish the foundational groundwork that will allow us to quickly create new enemies, abilities, and other features. We are all extremely excited for the future of Slime Night, and we can't wait to explore the different ways our core mechanics will expand and evolve. If you would like to join us on this journey of discovery, you can stay up to date by keeping up with our development blog, following us on social media, and joining our Discord in order to get the latest updates, chat with developers, and even have opportunities to playtest some beta builds along the way. The adventures of Slime Night are just beginning, and things will only be getting more exciting from here. All right, so that was Slime Night. I'm Jared Slosky, one of the producers on the team, and joining me today is Jaron Frost from Wildworks Games. He is a technical animator, which is something that I know nothing about. So Jaron, can you talk to us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, for sure. I'm kind of the bridge between the art pipeline that, creates the concepts and the models, and then I give them bones. I give them, the rigging, and animate them, and then I put them into the engine, which we use Unity at our studio. And so, and then getting them kind of like up and running in the game. That's sort of my job at the studio, is that part of the pipeline.
Nice. That's awesome. That's actually interesting because, as the trailer sort of mentioned, we did a lot of prototyping before we actually settled on the actual game idea, and one of our prototypes was actually made in Unity, and it's actually the one that had like the wiggly arm in it, which was a major hassle to get working. So like, from your technical artist perspective, how would you like go about making an arm like that feels like realistic and sort of floppy like that? Ooh. Hey, how's it going?
The light was everywhere. It was beautiful.
And we're back.
I'm so sorry.
Hey,
My
no
connection
worries.
must have dropped or something.
No worries. So did you
so
happen to hear that question, or?
I think so. How to create the arm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I saw your Unity prototype, and I was really impressed by it, and like how kind of smooth the motion was and everything. I thought that was really cool. And I was trying to think like, how would I create something like that? And I'm not totally sure. I was assuming there's some kind of like Bezier curve thing going on where you have like the point of your character and the point of the arm extended out, and it's like you're moving one point and it's kind of smoothly lerping.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
like
actually.
that. But yeah,
that's actually exactly how we got it done in the in the Unity prototype a little bit. So we had like we would map the player's analog stick, and then we had like a physics-based hand following where that analog stick is, and then based on that physics hand, we're dynamically generating a sort of Bezier curve. So it gave a pretty nice effect, but I guess the one downside is the fact that like the arm itself is not very physics-based. So like one of the actual big features that we want to be implementing for next semester is to have some sort of arm collision, so that when you're like hitting enemies and things, we're like either knocking them around or at least just like detecting collision, so that we can like leave like damaging slime on them and stuff like that. But when you're working with Bezier curves, that can kind of make things a little bit difficult if you don't have like colliders on the actual arm. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it sounds like kind of a difficult mix between you're controlling the physics, but then you also want it to interact with the rest of the physics engine, and that a lot of things can go wrong when you try to control things that way that aren't controlling themselves. Yeah, that sounds like a challenge for sure.
For sure. But we have a lot of super talented people who are working on this right now. So we're actually porting this to Unreal right now. After we spent a bunch of time working on the prototypes, we prototyped with the mind of we're scrapping all of this and starting over once we're done, so we could not like hold ourselves back creatively. And in some sense, that just means we got a bit of a late start in development. But in another sense, we've really passed a lot of hurdles in terms of design that we would probably face otherwise if we just like jumped headfirst into an idea without having it provably fun.
Yeah, and I was really kind of impressed by how you described that with creating prototypes, before you even like nail down an idea. I think that's a really good idea to like find the fun as soon as possible, and then when you find it, build on that, and you already have a strong foundation. I think that's a really smart thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And as somebody who has a lot of experience doing like a bunch of game jams and a bunch of solo dev, that was kind of in my wheelhouse, going through that kind of stuff. So I'm glad everyone was on board as a team to sort of dedicate the time to do something like that, because I know it can be very anxiety-inducing to spend all this time on these projects that are ultimately going to be thrown away. But I think we're definitely seeing the value of them paying off now that we're approaching like the halfway point here, which has been great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like how do you guys like either in your professional experience or any sort of personal work that you do, how do you go about like settling on an idea or like just starting to build a project, especially if it's going to be like a long-term one like these?
Ooh, yeah, that's a really good question. I know that like at our studio lately, we've been having a lot of kind of design meetings where we get everyone in and just kind of like throw some ideas at the wall, and like someone's in charge of like writing them down, and we aren't necessarily judging them or anything. We're just kind of like, it's brainstorming, and once a certain amount of time has gone by or something, or maybe it's like another day, you can kind of start looking through those ideas and being like, okay, which of these like 4 or 5 would be the best ones, or the ones that are most exciting, or are any of these like problematic, or like we really shouldn't do these, or they're too hard or something like that. That's kind of a good filter to run it through too. And then at this point, especially with our studio, like we kind of know how our game works and enough of the pipeline that we can kind of choose at that point, like, okay, we're going to do these things and we know that we can do them. But I think especially for something that's brand new, or like a new studio like you guys did, I think choosing 3 of the best ideas and like making an intermediate prototype is a really great idea. I do think that's exactly what I would do if I were in that situation as well.
That is very relieving to hear. So one of the things that I actually wanted to ask is, you probably saw in the trailer that we have like a model for our little Slime Knight guy, and he's rigged to the point where like we can pose him and stuff, but he's not currently in the game. Do you have any tips or ideas of like, hey, watch out for this as we're doing it, in terms of like locomotion and getting this character to actually be like working in the game? Is there anything we should be looking out for?
Yeah, that might depend a bit on kind of how Unreal works. Most of my experience is in Unity, and so there's a lot of kind of Unity and Maya. That's sort of like my pipeline. And so there's a lot of kind of unique things that I've had to learn how to account for with that pipeline. If it's anything like Unreal, I would say make sure that you save like each step of your character's progress along the way. Like have the master mesh file, have the master rig file, have the master animation file, and as much as possible keep those things up to date and clean, so that when you need to make changes, because you do have to make changes to things down the road that you just can't imagine, that you have those like clean files that are ready to go back and update and push through the pipeline again really efficiently and without breaking other things. That to me has become really important for our pipeline, especially with like how many characters and like how much content we have. So I would say being aware of that, but also, don't let that slow you down either. You definitely, it's okay to like experiment, get something in the game, try it out just like as quickly as possible. Once you can prove that like, okay, this is looking kind of how we want it and it is working, that's when you can go back and like, all right, we're going to clean it up, we're going to nail it down, and then like, move on to the next piece.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been trying to position ourselves in a place where we're keeping our scope nice and small, so that we can have the time to be able to explore those different avenues of like having fun with like some small polished things. One of the things you'll actually notice here in this video right now is that Uvula, this is going to be like the starting zone whenever the player starts like a run in this game, and we want them to be able to like knock that Uvula around as a sort of like little good luck charm for the run, or just like a fun way for the player to mess around with the mechanics before they actually get into the game itself. So
yeah, like a training dummy. I think that's a great idea, like design wise, like let the player play around with something in a low stakes environment before you throw enemies at them.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's brilliant.
And we want to make sure that we're positioned properly to where we'll have the time to add little flares like that, So it's been a lot of fun trying to figure out what exactly this game is as we're developing it. It gives some people a little bit of anxiety, obviously, when you're working towards something that you don't know what it's going to look like. But it's actually been super educational to like find that along the way. So yeah, it's been pretty great. Was there anything else like from an artist's perspective that you wanted to sort of comment on in terms of what we have currently?
I was gonna say, so yesterday Supergiant Games, I don't know if you know them, they announced their latest upcoming game, and your game kind of reminds me a lot of that, with like some of the concept art style that I saw in this top-down isometric perspective. Are their games like an inspiration for you guys at all?
Absolutely, yeah. You would be a rich man if you had a nickel for every time we said Hades alone. And I know for a fact that our concept artist used the Bastion color palette as a sort of reference for that
Yeah, I can
that
totally
picture
see it
there.
now that you mention it.
Yeah, absolutely. At the same, so Supergiant Games is a personal favorite studio of mine, but we at the same time we also want to not just be inspired by the games that we like, but make something original off of them. So yeah, absolutely. Like the pretty much the whole portfolio of Supergiant Games is a big inspiration for us. But we're also trying to add our own unique sort of spin on with our own unique ideas to try and make like not a Hades knockoff or something like that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I can totally see that, and I think you guys are doing great. Like the unique mechanic of your slime with an arm that can absorb powers or like knock things around. That's totally unique and different from Hades, you know. And I think that's a great thing to build a game off of.
Yeah, no, we're super excited to start seeing this come to fruition in the next semester when we add a bunch of polish and really make this combat sort of feel good. I do believe we are running low on time though, so I super appreciate your tips and advice, and I'm sure the artists appreciate it as well. So thank you so much. And now we'll be passing
keep
it
up
off.
the good work.
Thank you. So now we'll be passing it off to our final C12 game of the night, Echo of the Last Light. Here's our trailer.
The light was everywhere. It was beautiful. It was glorious. But as all things end, the light faded. It left everyone in darkness, except for you.
Hello.
Hello there.
All right. Well, my name is Penny, and I'm the producer for Echo of the Last Light. And everybody, this is Scott Hawkins from Nintendo. You can introduce yourself if you'd like.
Sure. So yeah, I'm Scott Hawkins, and I work for Nintendo. I've been making games for about 30 years. I've been at Nintendo for 4.5. I also worked at Sega, Activision, and I co-founded 3 studios. Currently, I'm the head of developer relations for North and South America for Nintendo, and I help developers and publishers bring games to Nintendo Switch. And we work with everything from indie developers to AAA, working on big projects. So super excited to be here today and participate, and already seen some of your game from Steam, so I've already done a little research going into this, but I can't wait. Would love to hear more about your game. So go ahead, Penny.
Yeah, this is Echo of the Last Light. It is a sort of like a combat puzzle hybrid game with a lot of narratives. It's our 3 pillars, honestly. Basically, you are this moth-like character, and as moths do, we be attracted to light. And, well, our companion is the light. So that sort of symbolism is what drives us through that adventure. But rather than trying to steal the light like moths do, we're trying to protect the light, and that's what makes us friends. And so Echo of the Last Light is when you kind of join us on that journey. We want to have combat that you defend your ally with, and we want to have puzzles that your ally can help you with. And we want to have a real emotional bond that we sort of form by the end of the game. So that's our objective.
Super cool. Penny, I noticed that special effect that the kind of radiused out. Can you talk about that, and what is that, and how does that affect the world?
Yeah, so that's sort of like a dimensional thing, where the companion has the ability to see into other dimensions, and when the companion does that, it allows you to also see. And that kind of gives you a tool to solve puzzles, to see new enemies, to see new things and hints. And so that's kind of our unique mechanic that's going to help solve puzzles in an interesting way.
Yeah, I had noticed that earlier as well when I was looking at it on Steam, and it seemed like there could be some really cool gameplay mechanics around that area, revealing items, and then where you almost have to make leaps of faith at some points, like here with the bridge appearing. Super cool.
Yeah, we had this idea. It wasn't even like our first concept. It was just, we'll try it and we'll see how it goes. And we're like, you know what? We really like this mechanic, and we think we can make it work with our narrative. So we just went with it.
That's super cool. It's definitely different and innovative, and it stands apart. It's something that really makes it stand out, which is great.
Do you have any other sort of like questions or thoughts about what you've seen so far?
Yeah, no. First off, I just am impressed just with the creativity, and noticed things like in the environment, like the way the brush is moving and stuff like that as well. And it seems very polished. How long have you guys been working on this at this point?
Yeah, we've started in September. That's kind of when we did our team formation. And then we plan to finish around April. So we are about 50% through our development process.
And at this point, what would you say your biggest concerns are? What are you nervous about to get done in time for April as well?
Well, you're asking the right person. The producer's always the most nervous person on the team, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I am kind of nervous about getting the mechanics. Like, we have some bugs in responsiveness with the companion. Like, sometimes it just loafs about, and it's like untamed. And we're kind of worried that bond between the player and the companion is going to lack a little bit. We've also got some issues with our character effects. You can see the capes clipping, and even just today, I was kind of still working on it. I finally figured out the rig and the paint weights, and so now I'm finally getting to start on our own custom animations with the antennae to flap, and the character is actually going to also have some wings to make it look more like a moth too. So.
Very cool. Yeah, no, it's interesting because I had not realized the character was a moth until you mentioned that at the beginning of the session. Also, I noticed you have some areas that are red lit and some that are a different color. Is there a reason behind that, or is that like a puzzle thing? How does that work?
It's a bit of a puzzle thing. So the player character here is actually going to be more red in tone, like the shawl and the tunic and stuff. And then the companion is already sort of this baby blue color. And that's going to indicate what sort of pressure plates the companion should stand on and what pressure plates the player should stand on to help with puzzle solving.
So I would definitely recommend upping the color matching for the player so it matches more with that color, because the part of the moth character or the player character's thing has a lot of blue on it. So, and where I was, I would, if you're supposed to step on the red ones, I would think you'd want even more red to line it up type thing. But I was just thinking out loud. The other thing that jumped out to me, and I know it's work in progress, obviously you still got a lot of time, is the health meters seem very placeholder. Like everything else is very stylized and different, and really, has its own kind of style to it. It's different, but the health meters feel really generic. And I don't know if you can do something with light or color or other theme, but some other way to display health of the enemies would be interesting as well.
Yeah, personally, I'm also a huge fan of diegetic UI and UX, so that the player can sort of get the feel of what's going on with the enemy rather than having to read data. So, I guess we have some inspiration on that to have some, panting animations and maybe blood spray and, just kind of indicating how low the enemy's health is, stuff like that.
I love how cute the companion character is as well.
Oh my gosh,
so
yeah.
adorable.
Credits to Yiyu, our really great artist who did our companion. It was so nice.
Very cool. Now, I've seen the one area. Is there going to be multiple areas you go through? What's the plan for that, for the project?
Yeah, so right now we have a plan to get all of our mechanics in one level, and then once we have all those mechanics built out, it'll be faster to build out level 2 and level 3, and then we're going to have a boss and end the game there after 3 levels. So that is our current plan. Fingers crossed.
Now, since the companion is the source of light, if the companion is far enough away from the enemies, do they not know that the companion's there? How does that affect gameplay? Do you do anything with that as well?
I don't know if we've done something or have something in mind design-wise for whether or not enemies are going to be more attracted to the companion than the player. But I do know that the companion has that vision sphere, that sort of dimensional bubble, and that does have a limit. So if there are enemies specifically that can't be revealed until you have them inside the bubble, then you're not going to be able to fight them, and they're not going to be able to see them.
And does the player control when the companion uses the dimension sphere as well?
Yeah. For the most part, the companion is fully commanded in the actions it does. For the most part, there are some auto attacks and auto targets that it does right now.
Very cool. No, I'm super impressed, and this is really, again, creative and original and different. I like it. Very nice.
Yeah. We also we plan to have some really unique features with the companion where it says, "What's this over here?" Kind of like a question mark, and you can kind of maybe interact with that thing, and it's going to give you some hints. We want the companion to sort of help us solve the puzzles. We're working on it, but we want that connection, I think, and we want to feel like there was a trial that you and this companion went through, and whatever happens in the end, it's all about that one journey.
Super cool. I guess I know we don't have too much more time, but what are you concerned about? At this point.
Yeah, there are some things that that could be improved, I think, with timeliness in terms of how quickly we get these assets in. I've done production on several projects, and it always seems to be that we're crunching at the last minute. And I know that's not uncommon, right? So
it's not ideal, but it happens all the time.
Yeah, and so I'm always nervous about what that last month's gonna look like. Are we gonna be stressing out, or are we gonna feel that we're so accomplished by February? Which that is what I want, but I don't think that's gonna happen.
Well, I think that either way you're gonna feel accomplished. The question is, how much will you have to do at the end?
Yeah, how many of our goals will we hit, right?
Yes. And then the other thing is, at some point you got to decide what's outside of scope. What do you need to cut back on to still make it work and get it done in time? But I think what you have so far is super impressive. It's really cool. Something like this, you have it running on Steam, but I could see something like this totally working on consoles like Nintendo Switch as well.
Yeah, we actually did consider doing a dual support for both controllers and keyboards. So that way it's equally accessible to those who are more comfortable or familiar with either. But we do only plan to have it on Steam, unfortunately. Yeah. So sorry, Xbox.
Clearly this is out of scope at the moment, but I could see you doing some type of co-op where it's the second person actually controls the companion as well, which would be
interesting. Yeah, we did. I think we did talk about that during ideation phase, but we were concerned about multiplayer. We just wanted to make a nice story single player experience, I think.
No, you gotta make those tough choices and decide what can be done, what's realistic, and I think you made great choices in what you did, because what you have is impressive.
Do you have any advice for companion interaction with your experience in those sorts of games?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's hard. It's not an easy thing to do, but at the same time, I would say it is, especially users will like to see if the companion isn't fully, predictable. Having it actually do some things that, you go, oh, great, it's doing that, or oh, I didn't expect the companion to do that. People will really enjoy that. And I think that can be good. So try to make the companion a little unpredictable, or, things like that could be fun.
Some personality and random quirks, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm not sure how much time we have left, but feel free to ask more questions if you have any more.
Yeah. No, so does the companion have a name as well?
Yeah. I don't know if you can still hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, the name of the companion in studio is we call it Chonky Boy, but the actual species is called Raylux.
Very cool. Yeah, when I was at Sega, I made a game called Sega Swirl, and we had a snake character that could put in different shapes, and it got so popular we even started to think about making plush characters based on the character, on the swirly snake. So that'd be cool if the same type of thing happened with your character as well. It's super cool.
It's a good idea for marketing. Maybe we should make some plushes.
People love things that tie into the game and promotions, and it also promotes your game too, which is great.
I'll take that into consideration. Well, I'm getting the flags, so I think that we are officially out of time. Thank you so much for coming to see our game, and I hope you play some more, and I hope you share the idea. Let some other people come play it as well.
Thank you for letting me participate. This was wonderful. And again, I'm really impressed. So congratulations to you and the rest of the team.
Yeah, really glad to have you.
Hello, everyone. I hope you enjoyed today's stream as much as I did. What an amazing collection of games. What an amazing group of students who built them. Before we wrap up for the night, there are really only a few things left to say. Number one, I'm once again blown away by the work of our students and what they're doing to design and build these games. Today was a great chance for us to see how our students, faculty, and staff work through the processes at the core of game creation. Getting a peek inside the processes of making these games at the midpoint of their development just makes me even more excited to see where they're going to end up. I want to thank all our students for their dedication to learning and their work as game makers. These students are all graduating this year, and I know how much care and effort they're all putting into building their own professional skills through these projects classes. They're learning not only how to make games, but about the critical skills around team-based interdisciplinary work, one of the elements of EAE's secret sauce. While I'm thanking people, I need to thank all the faculty and staff who taught our students and all of those who were on the stream today to help showcase the student projects. Thanks also to our industry guests who joined the stream to talk with their student teams and give some great feedback that's going to really help shape the progress of these teams' dev efforts. A big shout out goes to Sam Morris for the production work that made this stream so smooth. AJ Dimick, EAE's Director of Esports Operations, produced the whole show for EAE Play and was helped by all the EAE staff. Thanks so much, everybody. Finally, thank all of you. Thank you for your support today for EAE student work. Before you go, check out our website, games.utah.edu, for the links to download many of these games you saw on the stream. Please plan on coming in to EAE in April 2023 for EAE Launch, our massively huge in-person open house event where you'll be able to get your hands on the published versions of all these games. Until then, reach out to us if you have any questions. Find our student games online. Stay safe and healthy. Good night.